Ladies, gentlemen, and non-binary pals, please give a warm welcome to our guest and friend on today's wonderful episode of Creative Recharge. Please help me welcome Charlie Dorset.
Hey.
And you know him, I love him. It's Tom, our technical producer. Woohoo!
Hello again.
Oh, and we're going to talk about Kevin Smith, and I'm going to remember to turn my cam on eventually.
Today's going to be wild, y'all. It's just going to be like all the energy and none of the calories.
Carrie's out here in the chat. Charlie! Tom! Hello, sweetie.
I need your energy. Let me feed on it like a chi vampire for a moment.
Yes. And it is A-okay because nobody saw it, because I know I got ads through the entire intro. I think what they're really saying is we should make a longer intro.
Yeah,
Is that what they're saying?
I think so.
I feel that.
And Glory, I got all caps too. Yay. Hello, Cool Gamer. Hello, Spence. Carrie's been up since 5 a.m. And yes, I feel
Oh, wow.
That is slap happy. You're right.
I don't know what times are anymore. Like, eventually I fell asleep and then I wasn't, and then I was, and then I wasn't, then I was. So who knows? Like, sleeping did occur.
Mm-hmm.
Can confirm how much and or its quality.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes, I feel that. But yeah, here we are. We've made it. If anybody would like to tell me about their weather, I would definitely like to hear about it, because weather makes me happy.
It is dark and dreary and rainy, and they're already warning of the future flood because
Charlie, because of where you live and where I live, I always feel like you're like prophesizing what I might experience within the next 24 hours. And I'm like, go on. I didn't know this was coming.
Oh, I feel like it's almost time to build a boat because our ground is so saturated. Like, we still have a small pond in the backyard, and they're expecting it. Well, it has already started raining, and it's going to only get worse until like 6 p.m. tomorrow.
Wow.
So, like, all the rain.
So we haven't had any rain today. And it's 74 degrees in our neck of the woods. They're talking about like light chances of rain for the next several days, but like
it's only supposed to get hotter.
It's supposed to be like a 43% chance of 5/100ths of an inch of rain. So figure that one out.
Tomorrow. Yeah, we're in the 3 to 6 inch, and they're expecting most of that to fall within a half-hour period at about 6 a.m. in the morning.
So, like, yeah, it's going to keep getting warmer for us and into the 80s this week, and you can imagine the humidity with that. So, you know, we will be steaming ourselves inadvertently.
Well, I mean, maybe not for long, because we're getting a 2-day respite, and then we're expecting an ice storm on Thursday. So, yay! I don't like any of those words either. This is... No, we didn't do anything to mess up the climate. It's fine.
It's totally fine. Spence says, I am very much looking forward to some Kevin Smith talk. I'm still in my 7-year-old having a real bad day mood from last night. And I'm like moments away from either taking another nap or crying. Aw. Well. Carrie says, my brain woke me up when I realized I had left my writing binder at work yesterday. Oh dear. So I could no longer sleep. So when Peanut got up, I drove to work to grab it. Understandable. Spence says it's nearly 50 degrees. Haven't been able to enjoy it. Carrie says Joe was like, you'll be in that area tomorrow. Just wait till then. And I said, but that notebook is what I'm working on now. 59 currently. Open the window in the office. Oh, that sounds nice.
See, that's where the nightmare fuel really comes in, is we've gotten so much rain that I know that the mold is just waiting to spore.
Yes.
Like, it's just waiting for the temperature to be right. And the great thing is, you know when it actually happens, because everything gets this, like, yellowy white film on it that reminds you of pollen season. But it's kind of an off yellow, almost grayish yellow. And you're like, oh, crap, the mold has come for me. Because swamp.
I've given up on trying to keep the outside of the outside windows, like, clean.
Oh, yeah.
Nature finds a way, y'all.
Yeah, when we first moved into this house, we have, like, one wall of, like, siding, because it's a brick. The exterior is mostly brick, but there's, like, one wall that they had to add in, and we're like, who cares about brick? Let's just do siding. It's fine. So I used to, like, go out there and see the horrid state it was in and be like, I need to hose you off and make you clean. And then, like, 1 week later.
Yeah.
I get it.
And we're on a hill. We're on a hill, and we still have all of this, what is it, moss? I don't know what it is. It keeps building up because it's so humid here with all the trees.
I just feel like Maria is spreading throughout the country, and soon we will all have our own private swamp things living in our backyard.
I mean, it could be worse.
I mean, it could be. It could be Alan Moore's Swamp Thing, and then...
Yeah. I'll take Toxie any day.
Let us not speak of that again.
So, Kevin Smith, huh? This is literally an ongoing series. There is a part 1 from last year.
Yep.
Of the 3 of us talking about Kevin Smith. We only got through the 90s films, though. So this week, or this episode, we're talking about Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back, Clerks II, Jersey Girl, and Zack and Miri Make a Porno.
Or as it's known in Walmart, Zack and Miri.
Yes, Zack and Miri CDS. I did use the correct tag of just Zack and Miri.
Because if we don't say the rest of it, that completely nullifies the plot, I guess.
You mean versus...
Totally makes it a family film if you don't say the rest of the title.
Oh, yeah, completely a
like the early 2000s Triple X movie?
Mm-hmm. Yes, that film was a godsend to the video store. So it was in our lease that we couldn't, like, list adult products available on the outside lit up sign. However, we could list front room movies no matter the title. That was in our lease. So when Triple X came out, thanks, Vin Diesel, you're a godsend, we kept the Triple X as one of the movies available for rent for, like, months. Like, we were like, but it's still a new rental, because we kept movies back then. This was the early to mid 2000s. We kept them in the new movie section for 6 months, and then they would get moved to the $1 movies. And yeah, so we pretty much the whole 6 months, we were like, it's finally time to move it off. It was great for business, mostly the back room. But a lot of people also rented Triple X thinking that it was somehow more adult.
Oh, that movie is anything but adult. I mean, that movie is Ninja Turtles without Ninja Turtles.
Yeah, that's exactly what I used to say, didn't I? I was like,
Mhm.
it's Ninja Turtles without the like turtle back.
Like it's essentially the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie that the Henson Studio did under duress and
Yeah, remember
without the
like
green costumes.
there's like I think it's like halfway through or 2/3 through the movie, they end up in this like underground car park.
Yep.
And I remember just saying, oh, look, Master Splinter has shown back up to like make sure he's on the right path.
I mean, it's just shocking that at no point Vin Diesel say "Cowabunga, dude"? Like,
Yes.
I mean, especially in that scene going through the canal.
Yes. Like, it very much naturalistically.
Like, yeah, and in fact, people are like, well, would I like Triple X? I like Vin Diesel. And I'm like, if you like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the movie,
Yeah.
you will love this. And several people were like, oh no, I hated that. And I'm like, then do not give me your money for that because I'm not giving you a refund.
And if you want to know just how much the world has changed over time, it is an oddly fun anthropological experience to watch the first Triple X movie and then the third one. What is the Legend of Xander Kane or whatever it's called?
Yes, I think so.
Back to back, where you see them trying to retcon this character into a character and not just somebody who's been pushed to the extreme. Because the whole first movie was basically just a bunch of skater posters that would be sold to your stoner friends, the movie. And then they were like, oh crap, franchise. No, that was totally a story. Here, let me explain to you how plot.
You mean like the Kingsman series?
Oh, yeah. Like,
As they're like, but we killed everyone's favorite character in the first movie.
oh, man.
What are we going to do now? No one actually cares that much to see, Taron Egerton.
Except for when he is playing Elton John. I rather enjoyed his Elton
I
John.
did too. I think it was his best role ever.
Yeah.
I like Taron in musical roles. Like,
Yes.
I like him in Sing.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think he's very good there. But in Kingsman, it's like Vin Diesel as, a skater punk. You're really pushing it on what people can believe in a movie.
I just want one movie where they try to pass Vin Diesel off as like a professor at a college who teaches
Yes.
like physics.
Oh, so the Mark Wahlberg effect?
Oh,
Yes.
yeah. I really like. We've seen them do this with like every muscle-bound hero actor guy.
Yes.
Has at least one movie where we're supposed to accept, oh no, they're secretly genius.
Mm-hmm.
We haven't gotten that for Vin Diesel yet, and I kind of need it.
By the way, there is a poll in the chat for anyone who would like to. Which movie have you watched most recently? Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back, Clerks II, Jersey Girl, Zack and Miri.
And yeah, you can just do it I watched it when it came out, in which case the answer is Zack and Miri.
Right.
I would have to say Clerks II, just because with the advent of the new I can't believe it's not Tolkien series that Amazon Prime is making, where they're not allowed to actually allude to any of the events of the actual stories, but hey, we're going to do it anyway for a lot of money. I have been having a lot of flashes back to Clerks and the arguments between Star Wars fans and Lord of the Rings fans.
Mm.
And I kind of need a Clerks 3 just so in a post-Hobbit world where we're now living with, I can't believe it's not Tolkien and the Star Wars sequel trilogy. Like, I need a redux of these characters coming together simply for cathartic reasons. And so, yeah, I may have rewatched Clerks 2 just to imagine that scene, but talking about the Star Wars sequels rather than the prequels and whatever it is that Amazon's doing.
So I did watch an additional Kevin Smith movie, sort of, in addition to these four, which was, I think, last year they came out with a documentary called Clerk, which is just a timeline documentary of Kevin Smith and the movies he's made and what was going on around those times. And I have to say, based on, Gloria's deep-seated childhood love affair with Lady Elaine, I do enjoy every time that actress shows up in the documentary. Every time I do a role for Kevin, it's always so controversial. Like, why?
Okay. Yes. She was my very first crush. What can I say? Mr. Rogers kept me hot and heavy. Anyway, at the tender age of 4. Teasing. But I do love her roles with Kevin Smith because Kevin Smith really does portray her in these subversive roles, which she normally gets boxed into, that sort of Lady Elaine type category of, the safe character, the predictable character, the middle America character, when in fact she is the woman was always going to be a subversive person. She was part of the composition of when Mr. Rogers did an entire episode that was an opera. That was subversive for the time period. So I'm not surprised that he's always like, hey, I got a subversive role for you. Because she is an actor that gravitates towards subversion. And I love that about her. As well as, of course, every time I see her, I'm like, oh, I remember when I fell in love with her when I was 4. Spence says, there's a weird Pavlovian response I have to Clerks where I can't watch it without Girl Scout cookies and deep cleaning my closet. That's fascinating.
I mean,
nothing about Clerks. Well, I'd say nothing about Clerks or any of the Clerks movies makes me want to clean, but that's not really true because there's a lot of grime and mentioned in these movies, and I do feel a need to scrub. I will admit.
And, well, I mean, although also, it's like, how much did you smoke, Spence? Because, I hear Girl Scout cookies and deep clean my closet. I'm just like, that sounds like smoking, a decent amount. And you're like, well, I want to do something. Closet sounds good.
Yeah.
The devil's lettuce leads to a lot of cleaning that people don't realize.
I know. Yes. I think it's actually very good for people. It's cathartic.
In other parts that Clark brought up, to give me references for these movies is, despite all the references throughout Kevin Smith movies, Kevin didn't really smoke till Seth Rogen in Zack and Miri. And then Kevin, just started Wake and Bake for the next decade.
I think that's just a survival tactic. I have a lot of feels about Seth Rogen, and I feel like being medicated might be necessary to be in his presence. I don't know. He's a bit much.
Yeah,
he's a lot.
So, he's like the king of nervous laughter. It's kind of odd.
Yeah. And I like that he's trying to go through his transition now into serious actor. I don't know how successful it's going to be, but I do appreciate him trying.
Yes.
Because, we need to
Madonna wasn't wrong. Every couple years, a decade, reinvent yourself. Go for it. Maybe one day you'll hit in something that feels authentic. Maybe.
Well, I mean, Kevin Smith movies, to me, is a case study in authenticity.
Yeah.
Every time Kevin Smith does an authentic movie, people see it in droves.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard to get rid of them. They want to watch his stuff so much. And then he will then go, okay, I can finally be a success like every other Hollywood director. Let me make a movie for general audience. And it bombs again.
Yes.
If he is not his genuine self, nobody cares.
Well, I think there is a lack of sincerity and truth in writing.
Yes.
In general. And so I think it is one of the few things Kevin Smith brings to the table that hardly anyone else is bringing to the table. And not just in movies, I think in general. If you think about all media, or I guess all medium really, that like there's print, there's audio, movie, TVs, comic, all of this, that there's not a lot of sincerity. But people are really looking for genuine connections and things that are relatable. One of the things that I really appreciate about Kevin Smith, and I have like from the very first movie I watched of his, which was Chasing Amy. One of the things I appreciate most about him is that he gave a way to talk about difficult topics. He would have his characters have these conversations about very difficult topics in a very easy to relate to and even remember later if you want to imitate or take his talking points. He gave such a very easy way to jump in and have these difficult conversations with friends and family, and it really he stood out for that. And in fact, that is why I originally watched Chasing Amy. Was one of my suite mates in college. She wanted to come out to me, and the way she did it was, "Have you seen Chasing Amy?" I was like, "No, I've never heard of that," because I had just come back from the Philippines. So she was like, "Well, we should totally get this movie. I want to get a copy, and you should watch it." And I was like, "Oh, okay." And we were watching it, and she had mentioned it to a few other of our suite mates, and they were all like, "Oh, I want to watch it. I've seen it before," and a few hadn't seen it. So we were all like, look, at a certain point, there we are. We're 20 minutes in the movie. There's 18 college students in this little room intended for 2 people to sleep in. And we're all huddled around a 12-inch television, sitting on a VCR watching Chasing Amy. And the dorm mom comes in and she's like, "What is happening here?" And we're like, "We're watching Chasing Amy." She's like, "Oh, well, let's watch it on the downstairs TV." So, the entire viewing party then goes down, and she made an announcement. Our dorm mom made an announcement through the entire dormitory of, "We'll be watching Chasing Amy starting in 20 minutes. Bring your popcorn and your blankets." And it was a Saturday night, and that's what we all did. And then once the movie was over, most of us continued to sit there and have conversations about, what do you think about this part that happened? What do you think about Amy and her sexuality? And, there were so many points to discuss, as well as, what do you think about the 2 guys? Because none of us knew who Ben Affleck and what's his name?
Matt Damon.
Yeah.
Was it Matt Damon?
Yeah.
Are you talking about Jason Lee?
Jason Lee, that's what I'm talking about. Jason.
Okay.
We're like, what do you think of those 2 guys? Don't they seem like they're also in a relationship? They're definitely, this was late 90s conversations. But it really opened the door for many of us to talk about, well, how do you define your sexuality? Because Amy refuses in the movie to just take how other people label her.
Yep.
And not just say the straight mainstream folks, but also the lesbians. She's like, no, I self-define. And that was revolutionary for a whole bunch of Southern female college students going to a very Southern college. And it started so many conversations. And that was then my friend was like, "Oh, let's also watch Clerks." So I watched Clerks, and then that whole conversation about the contractors on the Death Star 2. Well, I was still having this conversation for 20 years with people about...
Which is why it still shows up in Clerks 2, because they haven't settled this either.
Right? But, people found these valid ways to talk about very difficult conversations. What is our moral obligation, and what can we get a free ride on?
I think that's one of the things that has really endeared Kevin Smith's work to me, in that, in a lot of ways, each of these movies is kind of, I'm not a big fan of the whole everything's a story mind and you can see how it breaks down a concept, because I don't think that it was intentional on his part at all. Mm-hmm. But the original Clerks was asking the question of what is adulting? What is an adult? And every character there kind of has their own opinion on it. And even the more subtle questions that are coming up are dealing with that, all the way through Dogma. What is our relationship to not only religion, but the traditions of our past and how we handle the world that we live in, and the fact that we really don't understand the past in the way that we think we do, because so much was either not written down or covered up because it was not convenient, and it brings up all of these questions. But, and this probably isn't the best way to say it, but it actually does it in the way that Dave Chappelle thinks he's doing it, when he's like, I'm not taking it aside, I'm just asking questions. Yeah, but you're you're making pointed observations, which is taking a side.
It is.
Doing loaded questions.
These are very open questions that are coming up there. Like Alanis Morissette's God is a Rorschach test.
Yes.
She's whatever you want her to be. Is she the almighty, infinitely powerful deity that controls the universe, or is she a playful sprite who magicked the world into being and thinks Jay is cute?
Mm-hmm.
Is she both of these things? That you can read yourself into these, and it's because Kevin Smith has gotten to a place where he is comfortable in ambiguity, which is a very hard place to get. And to me, what actual adulthood is becoming comfortable with ambiguity and understanding that I will never have all of the answers or all of the information I need to make some of the decisions that need to be made right now. And that comes through in his stories.
Well, like one of the things that was brought up in the documentary around Chasing Amy that I hadn't actually heard before is, well, yeah, a lot of people know about the Joey Lauren Adams aspect. Another one we see and eventually sort of plays out is about Banksy and who's our favorite?
Holton?
No, our favorite black actor who just doesn't get used enough.
Oh, I know who you're talking about. Yeah.
Now I gotta look up everybody on IMDb.
Of like, these are actually sort of stand-ins for the relationships he was seeing his brother have.
Yeah.
That this was also his way of kind of coping with, so you went to college and you realized you were gay, huh? And his brother's like, yeah, I guess so. Were you always? Is like, probably, but we live in too small a town. I never had a chance. I just don't like anyone here.
Mm-hmm.
You're like, oh, yeah, I can see where where the confusion comes in. Of this, it was also, it explains a lot more about the gay characters where they show up. Is like, this is his, but this is the norm. This is what I see every day.
And they are, in so many ways, like quintessential Gen X movies, in that they are always so interested in the question of identity. Who am I? What am I? Why am I? Mm-hmm. Like every character has probably a version of each of those questions that you could identify for them. And that is kind of the heart of the identity that Gen X built over time, was we're going to figure ourselves out, because that's where our forefathers went wrong. They didn't understand themselves, so they were able to be corrupted by the man when the man came, and we're going to not, oh crap, we did that, didn't we? Dang it!
And that is sort of, if you look at it, what is the heart of Jay and Silent Bob? But now that Kevin's old enough, he's doing the self, looking at himself. What is he? And the answer is, I don't know, but I am so upset at how everyone else tries to define me.
Yeah.
And I'm just supposed to be a regular dude. I'm not even any special group. I'm just, considered the most average. And they're still defining me in the most obscene, dumb ways.
So Jay and Silent Bob Strikes Back is, for me, Death of the Author movie edition. Like, if you're trying to explain Death of the Author to somebody who is having a hard time grasping it, sit them down and try to use this movie to explain it, because who created these characters? Did Jay and Silent Bob, being who they are, create the characters of Jay and Silent Bob? Did the community that gave them the name Silent Bob, right? Who created these? Did Holden create these characters when he made the Blunt Man and Chronic comics? Is the movie reinventing them? Who made these characters? Who
gets to decide what's canon?
Right. And that is a fascinating, especially for this story. Like, I feel there are times when you can feel the intentionality in what he's doing, because This is a story he's told 3 times. He did it in the comic book series that was collected in a graphic novel called Chasing Dogma, which tells the story of them finding out about the success of the Blunt Man and Chronic comics, them stealing the monkey Suzanne and their madcap adventures across the country fighting terrorists. Like the whole thing that would be in this movie is in there. We also see it in the Clerks cartoon, the Clerks animated series, where there's actually a 2-episode arc where, again, they steal a monkey, run around having to fight with other pranksters because they weren't allowed to show weapons in the cartoon at all, nor were they allowed to mention drugs, which is why Jay is just a mischief maker. Like, we could do an entire, like, season on just the animated series. But he told the story again there, and then we see it, maybe officially the canon version of this story in the movie, where, well, why did he steal the monkey? Here's why he stole Suzanne. Here's how all of this came about. Here's how he met these people. Here's the actual group that he fought. And what's interesting is seeing these 3 iterations of the story that happened over time. You can watch his growth and development as a writer, as a person, as the concepts congealed, which elements worked and continued on into all 3 aspects of retellings of the story. It's a really interesting project in that it's very rare to have the exact same story told 3 times by one writer, and getting to compare and contrast the differences between them.
And they actually release them as well. Yeah. Like, usually we have a couple versions of our characters strewn throughout our stories, but it's not the actual same character that we're changing each time and admitting to. Yeah, that's the same person.
And then, of course, the how the studio had to intervene in, for example, when Jay is arguing that Suzanne is at the vanguard of the ape takeover of the world that will lead us to the planet of the apes. That scene is taken directly out of the comic book series, but the studio made him cut it down because he was currently in a defamation suit with Tim Burton, because he said that Tim Burton stole his Planet of the Apes reboot from that section of the comic, which is really hard to argue against, and that's why Tim Burton lost his defamation lawsuit, because it basically is his reboot movie, but told by Jay in like a 5-page series of panels. And he really wanted to drive that home in the film version, and the studio was like, we don't need another lawsuit. We're going to get sued anyway because you are Kevin Smith, and that's what happens every time you release a movie. We're not willfully allowing you to set us up for another lawsuit. No. But I do kind of wish they would have let Jay do the full speech that he does in the comic, though. Because...
Yeah. The other part, I was surprised, and thankfully nobody holds it too dearly, so I'm not going to get in trouble for this. But I found Jay and Silent Bob Reboot actually very inspiring because, to be honest, it's not a great story. It's an okay story that the writer used every trick in the book to create a story around.
Yes.
Like, it's got a very simple, small story that in truth could be done in a 30-minute time frame. But we need a movie length. And, or, you could say you need a novel length. And he then uses every trick a writer uses to create a novel out of a piece of short fiction. And I find that actually very inspiring, and something to take note of here's all the different ways. It's not exactly padding, because everything does add to the story. They are all integral to the story in the end.
And but they all tie it out too.
How do you add scenes when your main story's been told? But people want to be in this, universe longer.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's easy to forget what a good writer Kevin Smith is because, again, like Lori was saying, nobody watches his more serious movies. Like, I mean, if you've not seen Red State and you can take all the content warnings that and trigger warnings that are necessary to watch this, I mean, the homophobia is really problematic. The religious abuse is extremely problematic, but they're core to the and integral to the telling of the plot. Plus, it is a gory movie. It has a lot of blood and violence in it. It is a horror film. But it is such a well constructed and just like you sit back and you can see the technical brilliance that he has garnered over the years and how that story is told and how each of the twists when they happen feel completely 100% natural and also throw you completely for a loop like, oh god, wait, that's what was no, what and you see that in the reboot. Like you see that same technical precision in the reboot in a way that I don't think people were wanting because they just wanted it to be dick and fart jokes. And I think that led to a lot of the reaction to the reboot is, you know, he thought he was dying. I mean, he was going through a health scare and did not know how long he had left in this world when he was making that. And you can see that kind of meditative, here's how I'm going to put a capstone on my career. Like if this is the last thing that I do.
Yeah, he did not want to be remembered. You know, the last one was Yoga Hosers. I'm like, no, I can't let that be the one everyone remembers me for.
But at the same time, that urgency kind of backcasts a lot of poignancy to elements from the previous movies that would not be there without it.
And
yeah, Red State is a trip and a half.
And I have to admit, after watching Clerk and seeing a lot of the actors as well involved, it's like, okay, maybe I can watch Red State now. You know, essentially, especially knowing how much everyone is having to act against their own views in this movie.
It is a hard movie to watch.
Like that's what Lady Elaine was especially talking about. Was just every time Kevin calls, it's an even more protested movie. And then there's this last one in Red State of like truly the character no one would ever cast this actor for.
Mm-hmm. And just the way the story breaks out and the way it all comes together, it is one of the best horror movies that has come out, I would say, since the turn of the millennium. And I say this to somebody who does not think that there's been a lot of good horror movies because they've been very predictable. They're just, they're either they found the formulas where they're either the jump scare movie or they're the torture porn movie because we can make money off of that, or we're the found footage movie a la Paranormal Activity. Because they actually found a formula that they could make money off of with that one, unlike with Blair Witch, where the formula didn't work for sequels. And it tries something new, and it does the thing that good horror should do, in that it unmasks everyone. Like the scary thing is not so much the murders that take place; it's the callousness and the world that. Well, how could this not have happened? Like, given the setting that it's in, how could we not have ended up in this place where all of these bad things have happened? And I think that's where a lot of really good horror hits home.
Oddly, to bring it back, you see a lot of these elements sort of really showing up in the Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back.
Yeah.
Of we see, the callousness of Will Ferrell's character, just the callousness of all the people in charge. Shaka.
Like
Chris Rock loved that character. Obviously, he just played that one to the hilt.
You could tell he was having a lot of fun. Like he just relished it. Like where you just get to be a total jerk,
especially to Jamie Kennedy. Who doesn't want to be a jerk to Jamie Kennedy at that point in time?
What'd you say, Charlie?
I said, who deserves it, if anyone in Hollywood?
Oh, yes,
does.
I agree.
Like, yes.
Well, okay, so what I found of merit watching the 2000s is it really seemed like here is a seasoned writer who is now trying to hone their craft. That's what the 2000s to be. So the 90s were Kevin Smith, like he just truly, from all accounts, Clerks was him writing from the hip. He was just writing instinctively. He had no idea what he was doing. So he wrote what he knew and what he cared about. And so you get like an incredible amount of authenticity there. And then he was like, well, that worked one time. I guess we could do it a couple more times. So you get Mallrats, Chasing Amy, and Dogma. This is all very instinctive writing. He is writing what he knows, and he's really not deviating far from real life at all. And then there, especially with Dogma, we start seeing him start taking the turn, hitting that curve of, okay, I kind of have an idea of my own formula. So now let me start honing my craft and figure out what am I really doing here, and where could I stretch? Where could I grow as a writer and try some new things? There are things in the next several movies that work, and there are a hell of a lot of things that do not work. So many problematic things. But I really see him as an artist who is exploring his own medium, as well as trying to get out of his comfort zone. And when you get out of your comfort zone, it means you do not always succeed. It means you do fail a lot more than you have a success. And that is normal. And that is an important part of it. But really see him improving his craft, or at least trying to. I think, honestly, it's more of in that third decade, in the 2010s, where we actually start seeing him improve, like notably improve as a writer and a director. But this is to me, the 2000s are this transition period where he experiments. He's trying out a lot of things. He's also trying out a lot of feedback of people saying, oh, this is how you need to transition. This is what needs to be happening in a scene. The actor prepares and all that crap. And, there's a lot to be learned by watching someone else try to learn.
And Kevin Smith, again, is really good for writers.
Yeah.
You can tell how much of a writer he is. To be honest, now that we have spent 3 seasons studying movies, I now have, because I've had a critical eye for so long, I can really tell the difference in acting quality. And Kevin Smith is not a very good actor's director. Everyone in his movies, you can tell how good of an actor are they actually. Because he does not have the language to tell them how to emote more, or how to change how they're emoting to get that, that special Oscar-worthy performance out. It's whatever they've got, which is why, Ben Affleck, not a great actor. He's pretty. He tries. He shows up. He always shows up. But he's not a great actor. He is
pretty much just has Ben Affleck playing whatever.
Yeah. Versus like in Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back, there's no question. Carrie Fisher is an excellent actress. Mark Hamill is a great actor. George Carlin, Chris Rock, Will Ferrell. Really good actors.
Well, the one question that I have in this in your analysis is, I think the secret to his directing is he finds a way to take characters that could come across as mean-spirited or spiteful, and I don't know if it's in his choice of actor that they don't come across that way, or if it's just the way he handles the material on set that keeps them from coming off that way. But
he never lets any character be one note. Every actor is allowed to add to their character to make them more developed. He also is really good. We talked about before about making sure the actors, / characters always have something to do in the scene. They are not just, a mouth talking on screen. They are, a person doing something that we have, stopped in to see what they do as well as what they say. And so there's always a lot of information coming across to show they're not just a one-note thought.
And it's something that could have really, really, really not worked. And I'm thinking specifically, I'm trying to remember the guy's name, but that poor kid that Randall is just tearing apart in Clerks II.
Elias.
Yeah, Elias.
Played by Trevor something.
That could have been so...
Oh, yeah.
So mean-spirited and so just hurtful and hateful. And, it could have come off very Twitter trolly in the way that it was performed. But, and again, I don't know how much of this comes down to the people that were cast to play these parts. That, I don't know how much of it's just that it's not in them to be that way. But it turns into a much more like a sibling ribbing their younger brother, and not so much as him. I mean, he says some terrible, nasty,
he really does.
Things
I think especially specifically with the Elias Randall part, it starts out a bit lighthearted, and then we see it ramp up. But before we have an opportunity for the movie to pause and for us to, sort of solidify a view about Randall and Elias. Randall and Elias have a conversation where Randall says his actual thoughts of why is he like this? What is he really trying to do? And it's not what it appears at first. And we can see that, no, honestly, someone would pull this, these are very flawed characters, but we know these people. We've seen these people who act this way. Randall is, in many ways, emotionally stunted.
Yep.
That's just who the character is. But even if he's emotionally stunted, he's still trying to get out his needs and fulfill the needs of his friends and others. He's just not very, articulate about it. And that's what we see is, so before we can go, oh, it's this kind of relationship, right before then, essentially it does show good editing. Like there is actually good editing in all Kevin Smith movies. You can tell that, they do pay for the nice editors who know what they're doing. That we see that scene. Because, like that second quarter in the movie, you are just like, why is Randall such a malicious character doing this to someone? Like, is this just Kevin Smith's beating up on, his problems with conservative America and how they destroy their children, and all this? And then it turns out, no, this is how hard it is to have male friendships in the modern world for older adults.
Yeah. And it's one of the things that, again, I find admirable about his fiction is that, like I said, that could have really gone a different way. That could have felt very different, especially with some of the more sexual connotations that come up with poor Elias and a show that he watches in course of the movie. There is a lightheartedness that does not take away from some of the more serious themes that he's talking about. Yet at the same time, if you've worked retail, if you've worked in these jobs, you see these characters as people that you would meet, less than as the caricatures that they could be and would be with a lot of other writers. Like, the reason we are talking so much still about Kevin Smith and his work and not like Dude, Where's My Car, for example, which does get brought up every now and then, even though they're very similar genres of fiction. That
I still like that movie, okay? I know.
Oh, no, I do too. but it is caricature. It
Yes.
doesn't have that. I don't even know what the word is for this. That authenticity. That's the word that you keep going back to. It that I don't feel like I have ever met any of the characters in that movie because they're so heightened and they're so waffle-themed that I can't see them in real life. You know what I'm saying? I know Randall. I used to work with Randall. I'm no longer friends with him, even though he still sends me messages on Facebook. I know that character.
Yeah. I think it's very interesting that for the most part, all the Kevin Smith characters I've ended up meeting in my life.
Yep.
Even the nuns. Like, it's been kind of wild when it's happened of like, oh, here we are. Because I normally do not orbit in Catholic circles down here in Mississippi. And yet I have met all the Kevin Smith characters. And in fact, that's one of the reasons I think I keep coming back to Kevin Smith movies. Kevin Smith has a tendency to prepare me for the characters I will meet in the next several years of my life. And I know that he's not doing that on purpose, that these are already people he's familiar with, these characters. But it has helped me in my own life be a better person by, already getting through that shock value. I mean, even the characters from Dogma in the strip club, the gangsters who are in their bidding war. I then, not even 3 years later, met these characters and was like, oh, I know what I'm looking at. I'm going to be cool. And so I genuinely appreciate that Kevin Smith is there preparing me for the world that I will find myself in sooner rather than later. And that is, again, another talent he has.
Yep.
And these characters are so authentic that when I meet them in real life, I recognize them immediately. It's not a hours, days, months later going, oh, you know who you remind me of? This character from a Kevin Smith film. No, it is like, hello, oh my God, yes, they are exactly like this movie. Literally upon meeting, I know them. I recognize them. Even before they introduce themselves, I recognize them from a Kevin Smith film. And so I understand them better because Kevin Smith gives very honest characterizations. So I often have immediate camaraderie since Kevin Smith has prepared me to meet this character beforehand. That is valuable to me. Even if, I'm not normally into horror films, it's got to be really good. And I do prefer horror comedy. So I'm not normally going to be watching the kind of films that he has been making lately, but I do my best to still watch them just for which characterizations will it be this time? I'm going to find out. By the way, before we go to break, I'd like to just go ahead and say, hi, Eva. Hi, Megan.
Hello.
And that, yes, we will be taking a bio break in just a moment.
Right beforehand, let's just say real quick of like Spence brought up a good point about Kevin Smith's really good at showing characterization rather than telling us. And real quick, that does not mean that the characters don't speak their characterization. They do. Kevin Smith shows you can have your character speak, but it's not an info dump. Instead, it is integrated into how their character meets the world.
Yes.
And so it does not feel like, a forced hand for expediency of the story that they're saying this. It's part of what they would say no matter what.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the other thing, about Ben Affleck in every Kevin Smith movie, going, when effing goober.
Ben Affleck is in fact a goober. Has always been a goober. Will always be a goober.
And Kevin Smith has said that his entire writing, every movie has been in part a rebellion against Hollywood's you write the character and then we'll cast someone who can fit it. And he's like, no, all my characters are written for that actor. That's who I'm going to try to get. And if he doesn't have an actor in mind at the time, he has said like he does after they cast someone, customize it to that actor. I mean, look, for whatever you want to say about the person that is Rosario Dawson is a great actor.
Yeah.
And at the end of Clerks II in the credits, Kevin Smith literally had written into the credits as the thanks to Rosario of making it believable that her character would actually be interested
In Dante?
in Dante and actually, bumping and making a baby with Dante. Like, actually making this believable.
It is a bit of a hard sell if you think about it on paper of like, but really, this woman has a whole future. She has everything. Brains, beauty, a future. Literally the opposite of everything Dante Hicks does not have. And yet, there she is on the prep table.
And,
but making a baby.
And, but she made it believable.
Yeah.
Definitely the right person for the role. Like, yeah. And I feel that way about most of the cast. Like, it's why when Clerks 2 happened, it felt so good and also so bizarre that they let him bring back these two basically unknown actors that were friends of his when he made his first movie to reprise their roles and did not make him recast them as someone more marketable. Like the fact that he fought for them, that he's fought for Jason Mewes to be in all of these movies, because even Zack and Miri, like that movie would not be as good as it is without Jason Mewes. He makes that movie
and despite which you normally think of as like, but his acting seems so wooden, but that actually is the character. Like, he is actually a good actor.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
He is good at, doing these roles that is hard to act for most people.
Yes.
But you can believe Jason Mewes' character in Zack and Miri.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, 100%.
I've met that person. I know that person.
And on that note, how about we take a bio break, and when we come back, we will just talk more Kevin Smith. That's all I could promise. It's just chaos, y'all. May I suggest, how are your liquids going? Do you have something to drink? Now might be a lovely time to make a cup of tea or get a snack, and we will see y'all back here in approximately 10 minutes. Beep beep. Beep beep. Beep 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 beep. Come out wherever you are.
I came back, but I double muted my mic so nobody knew. I only unmuted one of the things, and I'm just like, why did she say come out? I'm here. I'm talking. I said words. Oh, wait.
You said words, but did you really say words?
As somebody who is terminally online, like, this is the existential question of our day and age now, isn't it? If I speak words and they're not via a streaming service or a podcast, were they actually said?
I love the thing about the only way to get two men to pour their hearts out to each other is to put a mic in between them and call it a podcast.
You're not wrong.
Just actually,
I'm going to mute you, Tom. If you keep crinkling that much, I'm just muting you. You've been muted.
What,
now finish your crinkle.
Hour?
Finish it now.
Are we not? Is this not ASMR hour? Crinkle. Crinkle.
My God. Enough to drive a cat insane. Hey, are you done? No.
Has everybody's brain got the jiggles?
I heard the cat.
No, that's Brian. That's Brian being...
Brian, you are fantastic, and thank you for being a Lord of the Chaos. Brian's on my side.
He may have had a relax gummy today, so he's in a very special place.
Awesome. Spen says, I love that. There's a person in my circle that women keep sleeping with, and I am shocked every time. This person has less going for them than Dante, and I'm just like, where are your standards?
So I'm not going to call anyone out by name, even though none of you know who I'm talking about, but I know someone who I don't understand why everyone that I know has slept with him. Like, it's to the point where we have a running joke that when you meet this person, you take a number, and eventually your number will be called. It's just your time, because apparently, eventually, everyone sleeps with him. And it's not like, he's not unattractive, but he's not like drop dead gorgeous. He's very quiet and not really a talkative sort. He's not really funny. He's not really charming, but he does have this little dance thing that he does that for some reason turns everyone on regardless of their sexuality or gender expression. And it's really weird. And I feel like Dante has that, and they just didn't include it in the movie because it was just too much. And that's how he got her. Is he just has this weird little jiggle dance that he does. And she's just like, I gotta have it. Oh, yeah, and the beer swirl. Yeah.
I think she also likes his pedicure. There's the real secret. They barely go over in Clerks II. Dante is an expert at a pedicure.
This is true.
Do you see that look of shame on Glory's face? That's because she knows how powerful a good pedicure is. And she cannot disagree with this fact.
Well, I mean, finding a heterosexual man that will do non-dirty things, non-genital related things with your feet is not... Like, that's a keeper. That's a keeper. It's kind of like, you know, I can't say the other one.
I don't know that I would say a keeper, but it is a winning, it's a closing argument that's effective. I have been seduced more than once by different people who had this as their closer, and I have talked to other people that also got closed on and was like, oh, it's very effective, but it's all they have going for them personality-wise.
You did this thing without getting pervy. Yay.
Yeah,
I feel like that's
at it. Like, not just anyone can massage feet well. You know, some people are just like, pat, there, I rubbed your feet. Like, no, that is not. No. It's like,
I'm
you
not
don't even know.
staring daggers at someone right now. Like, it's fine.
So, but I have been seduced more than a few times by foot rubbers, and it is so hard to keep one's clothes on. So hard.
So Tom may have cracked it. Like, this may be the secret. Like,
so hard, y'all.
We may now know how this relationship came into being.
The only protection I have now that I have learned in my 30s so that I would not, fall for the glamour is wear better shoes. Wear more comfortable shoes so that your feet don't hurt so much. So the foot rubbing is not so effective. So, yeah. Spencer says, I met the actor that plays Dante, and I can see why people would be into him. I can't. He's got a strong non-predator aura that I can't really explain.
So this is everything wrong with this is why there's a Reddit called Are the Straights Okay? This statement right here needs to be clipped and sent in there because I totally understand what you're talking about, but the straights are not okay.
Well, essentially, it's so rare to find, again, a man that's not pervy.
Yeah.
To some degree, and that you can just feel safe around. And that difference is so noticeable, it kind of trips up a lot of other standards you have set in your mind.
I just feel like straight people, they just don't have standards.
I feel this.
I am not here to come at the straights, but okay. It wasn't formalized, it wasn't a massage. But, also they took instruction about where to rub, right?
Okay, Maggie, you win.
I don't have arches.
You wins.
Yeah, I don't understand. I mean, look, it's not just me. Pierce Anthony, so long ago, literally tried to tackle this in one of his books, one of the books that I was given by this coven of lesbians, that somehow they were here's all the hardbacks of Pierce Anthony Xanth novels. And in one of them, it's about a goblin princess. And the goblins have been cursed by someone 1,000 years prior that goblin women would only ever choose the worst possible mate for themselves. They would never be able to choose even a mediocre partner. And so this princess, I believe, was trying to break this curse in some way, or at least acknowledge and deal with the curse. But anyway, that was apparently the explanation of why goblins were so terrible, is because only the terrible people are procreating, specifically the goblin men.
Mm-hmm.
Only the terrible goblin men are procreating, and the nice goblin men are not getting children, and they're, line, biology, whatever. So, I mean, even Pierce Anthony tried to tackle this, and I was yes, finally someone is addressing this. Why are the straights like this? I don't have an answer. I just noticed that straight, and I don't want to say just straight women because it's not. It's just straight people in general are just hey, you look good enough that we could bang this out, and I won't hate raising kids. No, they don't even think that far. No.
No, they don't.
No. They're just hey, we could bang it out. That's it. And then they're ooh, surprise babies. Even when they get married, they're oh, wait, but child rearing? You mean I needed to discuss this and make sure that we had similar child rearing styles or belief systems? Maggie says, I think that pervy is like body odor. It can be covered up with enough Axe, and then you get a headache.
Okay, so I know it's not exactly what you were saying,
it
but...
makes me so dry. I hate Axe. Literally, it makes it uncomfortable to walk.
Can I just say, there's no more oddly natural statement in the world than I know this isn't what you said, but this is how my brain interpreted it. A cult of lesbian witches that follow Pierce Anthony. For some reason, that is the most natural thing that could ever be said.
Yeah, look, it was the late 90s, early 2000s, and this lesbian I knew from support group, she was oh, you read fantasy? Have you ever read Pierce Anthony? Have you ever read Xanth novels? And I was yeah, I'd read a few that were at my library up in Oxford, Mississippi. They had 3. I read those. I liked 2 out of the 3. And she was then you need to come over to my house. I have an entire closet of hardcovers. You can just have them. And I'm I don't have much money. She's you can literally just have them. I got lesbians keep giving them to me, and I somehow don't know any other lesbians that haven't already read all these, so I now bequeath them to you. I thought she was talking about 4 or 5 hardcover Xanth novels, and it was 20 something. It was literally the height of my mother of hardcovers.
And if you need to understand real quick what kind of writer Piers Anthony is. Way back before it was considered cool or even okay, around the same time as Carrie, he wrote a book called Firefly.
Yep.
About a woman who kills with sex. And it was just, well written. Not the woman is not actually written as the monster of the novel either.
Nope.
And that's part of why, yes, lesbians read a lot of Piers Anthony, because his female characters are okay. There's nothing on about them.
I rather liked their curated list, because it wasn't every Piers Anthony book that I was given. I wasn't given every 10th book. I was only given, a set of them, and I think it was at the end she gave me in the end over 20 of Xanth novels, but also other Piers Anthony stuff. There was a few in space, and then some other just fantasy novels in general, except for the Shannara stuff, because but it was all the other lesbians heard in the coven, and were funneling, here, give her this, and so I ended up selling them at the video store, and they were like, look, it's supporting your business, it's fine. Because they'd run out of lesbians willing to read fantasy novels in South Mississippi. There's just literally a handful.
But again, Piers Anthony books are another way of broaching those subjects that are not acceptable at the time, and really for another decade or two at least, at the rate Piers Anthony tends to put his books out.
I will agree with that, even though sometimes he comes to rather problematic conclusions, or the story itself is rather problematic. I would still say at least he's trying to address or acknowledge these issues in general.
And he does grow and mature, and he does, even, sort of redact and fix those later on. And when he finds out of it came across like this, or nope, that's not how it is, huh? Okay, so how do I address this in my next book so people can go, no.
Yeah, I would say so. So, yeah, that was... I don't know how we got to talk about this. But anyway, the Straits. I don't know why they're like this. It works.
It started with foot massages and how Rosario Dawson fell in love with
Donna. Yeah, the whole, painting her toenails, I was like, yeah, that's how he got her on the prep table. It made sense to me from the start, but maybe that's just because of my own personal experiences. So anyway, Kevin Smith.
Shall we talk about the pink elephant in the room?
Jersey Girl.
Jersey Girl was a mistake.
No. Okay, so here are the things to learn from Jersey Girl that people don't think about, but has been brought up in several ways. 1, Jersey Girl, despite even Kevin Smith thinking this, it does show you even authors can be wrong about their own self-views, really. Kevin Smith really wrote this and presented it as a story for his wife. And he literally fridges the wife in the first 10 minutes. He was truly also blind by his anxiety about this. And really what Jersey Girl is it's Kevin Smith's anxiety and nightmare of what happens if he loses the best person in his life. What would he do? And that's really what this is about, is, yes, he does dearly treasure, Harley Quinn, but how would he do anything if he didn't have Jennifer in his life? And that's what he wrote out, was his nightmare. And then, his, hopeful, this is how the community would support me, that I would survive this. It is not written well, which is how you can tell it really is his he still hasn't processed it when he wrote this. This is definitely still in the middle of his anxiety.
Which, I would like to point out that from a writing perspective, the more personal the story is for you, the more you need to let it sit longer in between edits so that you can see it with a more objective eye.
Yes.
Because part of Jersey Girl's problem was it definitely did not have enough of editing and revisions where
he
was not holding the story precious. So
yeah,
for
this is
instance,
all emotions, all fears.
So, like, I have this neat little trick since I have ADHD, where I can I write something, I make something, whatever. I put it down, I put it out of my view. The next day, I get distracted, I go do other things. When I finally remember to come back to a project for editing, I have forgotten almost everything about it, except maybe the basic log line. And so when I reread what I've written for editing, I'm really reading it with a very fresh eye because I barely know anything about it, even though you're like, but you wrote it last week. Yeah, I'm like a cat. I barely have object permanence. And that is apparently actually a factor of ADHD, just saying. So I have learned to use this to my advantage in editing. But if you don't have ADHD, then you've got to figure out another way to let it sit long enough that you really do forget it. You write enough other things that it's all kind of blends together and you forget this project so that you can then come back with a fresh eye, or you're just going to have to get someone else you really trust as an editor to edit the hell out of it. Because if you refuse to edit it a lot, you are holding it precious. And that is actually what Stephen King's talking about with Kill Your Darlings. When you're holding something you write precious, you're not giving it a fair shake for other readers. And it's becoming, I'm going to say it, it's a masturbatory project. It's really only there for your own pleasure. It's the equivalent of a snapshot in photography. It only is valid in context. It is not interesting or worthy for others because they don't have the context. That is the problem. So in editing, we're trying to remove the need for context for the written thing.
And Jersey Girl is yet another attempt of his, okay, so there is an audience out there who likes me and I can make money still as a director and a writer. My life is not over. Let me write a story for general audience. That's not who your audience is, Kevin.
Well, I think,
and again, every time he tries to do a general audience movie, at the time, he does get some of the biggest stars in Hollywood at the time to be in it. Jersey Girl had Ben Affleck, Jennifer Lopez, and Liv Tyler.
As well as George Carlin in a supporting role. He was.
But
George Carlin.
Liv Tyler had just come off of Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, the first one.
A year or two later, like this isn't that long. She's still got a lot of glow from Lord of the Rings. Ben Affleck is probably at one of his highest points where he can charge whatever he wants in Hollywood.
Mm-hmm.
Jennifer Lopez also at one of her highest points. She can charge whatever she wants in Hollywood. No one went to go see Jersey Girl.
Well, to me, the problem with Jersey Girl is twofold. One, the ad. This is where studios ruin movies. The ad campaign, followed by the reviews, didn't mesh. The ads made it look like, have you been wanting that Bennifer movie? Here's your Bennifer movie. And then the headline from every review is, Jennifer Lopez dies in the first 10 minutes.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And so, to a mass audience, this is, again, the problem with trying to go to that mass audience. They were told before they could go see the movie, it's a bait and switch, don't even try.
Yeah.
And the other problem that, to me, that it has, and where it fails where something like Zack and Miri succeeded, in my mind, is it's like watching someone who's never exercised in their life pretend that they're proficient with yoga just by looking at diagrams and trying to do the stretches. He is a comedic writer. This is where he has developed all of his chops. I mean, even in something like Red State, there is still that humor that's necessary for horror to work. Like, the murders are still in that ironic sense. It's why Jordan Peele is so good at writing horror movies, is you have to have a good sense of irony for a lot of horror to land. I cannot think of a funny, not even like a joke, but a funny moment in Jersey Girl. Jersey Girl is so self-serious and so like this was his Oscar movie. You know what I'm saying? Like this feels like this was written to be his Oscar movie.
Well, every general audience movie is a movie written to make $100 million, to be a box office smash. And every time he messes up the landing.
Mm-hmm.
And Jersey Girl is a case in point of him messing this up at the basis. Also, it's him in the middle of grief. This is also a love letter to his dad who just died. That's who George Carlin is in the movie.
And Zack and Miri, which has the same concept of what if I lose the one person I love and my entire life. Like that is the core of that movie. Like they're not making pornography because they want to get rich. It's how are we going to keep our feet on the ground? Like there's that sense of desperation there, but also what if I lose her, even though I don't have really the courage to tell her how I feel because I am an emotionally stunted man-child, which again, a character that Kevin Smith writes so well for, I don't know why. I mean, it's a mystery. But the humor that
such a large audience, though.
But the humor he was able to bring to Zack and Miri, like there are some scenes in that movie that are heart-wrenching, and just like the actual, like when you get to the actual sex scene that happens in that movie, it is, I found emotionally devastating. Like it is so, I had to look away from the screen because I felt voyeuristic. Like this was not for me to see. And that's so intentionally part of the plot. It worked so well. And it's such a serious movie in the same movie where you get to see Jason Mewes completely naked for comedic value. I mean, like, but it works in that Kevin Smith way that it works. You know what I'm saying? Like that irreverent humor is something that is such a part of his voice that with it just absent in Jersey Girl, like completely,
there really is no comedy, even where there could be, and it would help so much. Like the scene Glory couldn't get through in Jersey Girl is when the baby's crying and Ben Affleck refuses to comfort the baby.
Yeah.
And there is no laughs made in this entire extended scene.
Nobody would pick up the baby. I could not handle it. I needed to murder Ben Affleck and go get the baby.
And that's
like it was too long. Edit that cry down. Like some of us have souls.
But see, that's the thing, though. That's the Oscar moment, though. You can see, like, this is the moment where they're like, Ben Affleck's going to get his Oscar nomination for Best Actor. I'm going to get my nomination for Best Writer because it does it hits all of those markers that a quote unquote Oscar bait movie has to hit, right? It's gut wrenching. It's painful to watch.
Making other people suffer so your character can grow.
That's how
Oscar bait.
That's how Leonardo DiCaprio got his Oscar.
I thought his character was suffering throughout that movie. What was it, The Revenant or something?
Yeah, but that's the like.
Yeah, he's the one who bled, not other people.
It's true.
Versus Ben Affleck is not the one bleeding.
Ben Affleck never bleeds in this movie.
The women bleed. George Carlin's character bleeds, but Ben Affleck never bleeds. Even his assistant bleeds. I mean, it's hard to feel bad for Jason Biggs, but there I am going, he's just trying to, like, you know, keep his calendar. What the hell, man?
I almost said a bad word from another Kevin Smith movie about the title that Kevin Smith gave to Jason Biggs. I almost just like blurted it out, but I'm trying to keep it PG just for you, Glory. Trying. It's so hard when talking about Kevin Smith not to say all the dirty words. It's so hard. Like it's difficult for me to keep my language clean.
There's only one truly forbidden word. Beyond that, you know, we have to. We'll edit it out later.
I was saying, doesn't Biggs say his nickname in Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back?
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, Jersey Girl, the main character never bleeds. Everyone else does. And the part I almost laughed out loud at watching towards the end is, so after all of this, in his, epiphany moment at, eight-ninths of the way through the movie, we have this little chat with Will Smith, and all I could think watching this scene is, and 5 years later, Will Smith would go, I could win an award for this story. Let me go do my own version.
So I guess what I'm trying to say is, this is a movie that I could see Jimmy Stewart have starred in the 1950s. It has almost all the same plot beats, where you have the quote-unquote suffering cis white male lead character who, yes, he loses his wife at the beginning of the story, but of course we don't really dig into his trauma because that would be admitting his weakness and denying his...
Yeah, we got to hold on to this toxic masculinity.
Yeah, it has a very... like 1950s vibe to it. And
I really think Jimmy Stewart would have portrayed it with more compassion, though.
Yes.
Like, I'm not trying to say Jimmy Stewart's like some paragon or something, but as far as I know from things I've read about Jimmy Stewart, he would have demanded a rewrite where the character is in fact more compassionate, and Ben Affleck really plays it as a villain.
Oh yeah.
Which, okay, but quit like hurting babies? Like, it's America. We don't kill the dog and we don't hurt the little babies, for heaven's sakes. Like,
we sick Keanu Reeves on you if you kill the dog.
Right? Like, we don't hurt babies or dogs, for heaven's sake. Like, just, it's America. They can do that in France, but we don't do it here.
I'm just saying, I can see how this was meant. I can see how on paper this was meant to read as symbolic. Is he can't touch the crying child within him. Like, you can see how in this cis straight male mind, how this is supposed to be symbolic of him not dealing with his own traumas, which is really what that entire movie is about, where he just gets a band-aid of a cute girl that makes him forget.
I'm gonna just say it. I'm gonna say it. I really prefer the way they dealt with this in Red 2.
Yeah.
You make the run to emotional safety.
Yes.
Like, yes. John Malkovich needed to be in Jersey Girl telling Ben Affleck, you need to make the run to the baby where emotional safety is, because you're out here in the fields, man. You're in the landmine fields, and you're going to get a foot blown off real soon. Make the run to the baby.
100%.
Right? And then you might accidentally find Liv Tyler there waiting. But nevertheless, make the run to the baby, because that's where you will find validation. Is in what you can do for others. That purpose-driven life, I know it's kind of bullshit, but also it's kind of true as human beings. We get validation from trying to take care of each other. So being a selfish prick is not the way to succeed if you want growth.
And it is unfortunately the way that society has defined modern masculinity, which is why I keep making the allusions to the 50s. Like, yeah, I agree with you, Maggie. If it had been set in the 50s with like flashbacks to his trauma from fighting in World War II, yeah, definitely.
Except there's no trauma.
He lived an ideal life.
Yeah.
That was his problem.
Oh, you lost a person, like as if humans are immortal or some crap. Like, it is an unfortunate, but it is a true part of the human experience that we all have to eventually part from everyone we love.
It's Holden, yeah, it's Holden from Chasing Amy, but without any of the supporting cast to yell at him and be like, why are you like this? That's what the character that Ben Affleck plays.
He needed to get punched a lot.
Yes, he really was not punched.
Ben Affleck's got this face that says, I need a slap or a punch like every 3 to 5 minutes.
Yeah, I'm just saying, this isn't a character that comes out of nowhere. This is Holden. This is Holden's character, except for Holden had a support network around him that would yell at him. And he still made the wrong decisions. But he at least had people around him telling him he's being an idiot. That support network, because if you look at how Kevin Smith writes advice, as is his way, all sincerity has to be couched in this kind of sarcastic humor. That's why Silent Bob always gets the best quips, because he comes in like Yoda at the end to tell you how, oh no, here's the moral of the story, how this should really work out. And oh, I bet you can't believe that I have this insight in me. And it comes off in this very sarcastic way. Because Jersey Girl was meant to be, and I truly believe it was meant to be, this Oscar bait film. Like, they really thought that they were making a masterpiece here.
It was like some kind of bait film.
It was something. That it couldn't have that juvenile humor that Kevin Smith is known for. Like, this is his adult movie, and it shows so many problems with how toxic masculinity is often portrayed, but also how toxic our sense of adulting is. That when he's trying to do, like, here's my adult film without the puerile humor, without all of the, fart jokes and dick jokes, it just comes across as mean. And again, why Zack and Miri worked, because all of the potty humor was able to come in and allow these characters to have that sense of vulnerability that is allowed within the strictures of masculinity. That while he challenges it from time to time, and with some of his characters completely destroys it, and I love that when it happens, he's still beholden to it.
And the other part that is weird, and again, makes you not care for this character, is he does not have a support group. He does not have any friends. We find out of, like, the second his wife dies, we find out he doesn't actually have any friends. His wife was literally the only person he managed to keep a friendship with.
Mm-hmm.
So he has to go revert back to his parents' house because there is no one out there for him. Like, he didn't even have her friends. Like, this is some isolated, yuppie, uncaring character of, like, this was a self-centered person. And everything in this movie in the first 20 minutes shows us just how self-centered this person is without any real redeeming qualities.
It's a basic problem with all tragedy porn.
It's really not a good characterization, to be perfectly honest. We talked about how Kevin Smith is so good at characterizations before the break. And this is the worst characterization I think he's ever done. And I'm saying that from somebody who wrote about sauerkraut-filled Hitler dolls who are murderous. And I would still say that was better characterization than Ben Affleck's character in Jersey Girl.
See, that's where I think we're having a disagreement here. Is, while I do not like this character, and I am not defending this character, I think this character is the only one that a cis straight man could have written in this scenario, because he was trying to grapple with his own fears, but not letting himself be vulnerable. Like, there is no vulnerability in this movie. There is nothing, like, with the exception, like, okay, I'm just gonna.
We see some vulnerability in George Carlin.
Yeah,
but that's George Carlin acting. I don't think that's in the text of what he's doing so much.
I think that, like, I really believe that no human being is capable of being pure evil, that something has to give, and they will inadvertently find themselves being kind in some way or something like that. But portraying Ben Affleck's character this way, where he has no redeeming qualities, is not that believable. Like, surely he can't be that much of a self-centered jerk. And the baby crying that long really illustrates to me that this was not a good character, because it's not very real. Most people, unless they're, maybe physically not able to hear the cry, cannot bear a baby to cry that long without there actually being a biological impetus to go deal with it, at least to try to stop the crying. Like, unless they're just truly somebody who needs to be maintained in a facility where they're not allowed to freely move about. I'm just saying. And that supposedly was not the film they were trying to portray. So that's why I'm saying it's not a good characterization. It's really not. This is, in my opinion, his worst one. Granted, I haven't seen
Okay.
it.
Also, hold on.
Because it's not a well-rounded character.
Okay, so
even when it is a mostly villain, it should have a few redeeming qualities.
I see the difference in our reading here. I see the difference in our reading. You're still you are addressing this as if it is a film and not the nightmare fever dream of a person trying to cope with his own mortality and the fragility of his own relationship.
Like what you write just for yourself that never sees another pair of eyes, that like you could just write terrible, shallow villain characters all you want. I have no comment on that. But when you're like presenting it to other people and saying, I have something for you to do for 2 hours. Sit here and watch this. Then you need to be thinking about your audience, your viewers, your readers, whatever, the other people, because it's no longer about you as the storyteller. It's about the people you want to enjoy the story or get something from it. And that's where, you need well-rounded characters, for heaven's sakes.
It's the same reason why you hire, even for your ugly characters in movies, and deep down, they're still actually attractive people because it's a movie. You have to very quickly get people to care about this character to empathize with them. And there's nothing done to make you empathize with Ben Affleck other than he's a pretty man.
Yeah, but he wasn't pretty enough for that. And I was saying something because I had already told Tom that I happily would be Ben Affleck's rock bottom. And I would take pictures the whole time like, hi, and then I would shake his hand. It was a pleasure being your rock bottom. I hope you don't go any lower. But call me if you need to revisit this. I will happily go out to eat with Ben Affleck and listen to him gripe the whole time while taking pictures with him as his rock bottom. But no, this character, I just wanted to murder his character, steal the baby, run off.
And again,
just not that I really want a baby. I don't want a baby.
And it's not, and we're not saying that these people don't exist in real life, that this is an unrealistic character, but it's an unrealistic expectation for your audience to care for this person.
Yeah, I really did not care about Ben Affleck's character's journey at that point. It's like, no, he must die. I must now take this baby and find this baby a better home. Suddenly I'm in The Mandalorian now.
I experienced my experience with Jersey Girl is kind of like when you stumble across one of those like anxiety filled fever dreams on Tumblr that know they're eventually going to delete because, oh God, I can't believe I actually did that at 3 a.m. after taking 2 Xanaxes and drinking a bottle of wine. Like, I feel like that is what Jersey Girl is. Unfortunately, it's owned by a corporation that's going to keep putting it out because it's got names in it. Like, I'm.
But again, like, this is why when you write something that is close to home, that you're like, I write this as my own catharsis. Okay, there's nothing wrong with that. That is wonderful.
Please do so.
But before you're like, now let me profit off of this and make the rest of the world pay me for my catharsis. Have some other people edit it and like real deep edit it for a general audience who's not you, who does not have all these contexts. Jersey Girl is sort of the epitome of, in photography, what Gloria's saying about is a snapshot.
So in photography, so there's photojournalism where you're really trying to document something that happened, and you're prioritizing facts. And then there is majority of the rest of photography, which is art, where you're trying to make a commentary about what it is to be human. And then there are snapshots. Snapshots are deeply personal, but they always require context, or they make no sense or have no emotional resonance with anyone who's not in it or knows anybody who's in
And this is
pictures.
Epitomized by the post-travel slideshow torture that used to be so common in the 20th century, because almost all of those slides, those are memories of that person They have no context in them. You had to be there. That is why they're torturous.
For this slide to have any sort of interest or significance. It's often poorly composed. Sometimes it's just a rock surface, or it's just a beach, but it could be any beach on the planet for all you know. That's the problem with a snapshot, or it's just say 3 people in a photo all clustered together, and maybe there's like the Leaning Tower of Pisa in the background, but maybe sometimes there's just nothing. It's just random people at a park, and you're like, why do I care about this picture? I don't even know who these people are, and there's nothing about this image that resonates with me as a human being. That's a snapshot.
And usually there's no, even, if you are being tortured in a slideshow, there's no story to go along with this to, again, give you context and make it enjoyable. You just had to be there to enjoy the scene. It's a great memory recall device, but it means nothing to a person who didn't experience it. That is Jersey Girl. Yes. If you didn't experience this, if you didn't just have a daughter that you love dearly, but you have no idea what you're doing, if you didn't have a wife that you don't know why she wanted to marry you, let alone has stayed with you because you are a man-child, if you don't know why you even got the success you have, and all the anxiety around this of someday they're all going to realize I'm an impersonator, I have no rights to any of this success, and they're all going to abandon me, you have no context for Jersey Girl. It means nothing to the rest of the audience.
Just a side note, this is my favorite form of torture for the in-laws, because I've had to sit through so many of their vacation slideshows that every time we go to a convention, I sit them down and show them all my pictures and go through with all the details, especially of my furry friends. And, oh, did you see the eyes actually light up on the costume now? They're off, they're on, they're off, they're on. Did you see just the nuance that the light brings to the eye when they turn the eye on?
I forget what that's called. I want to call that torture bonding. But it's that, where you bond by mutual torturing. Kind of like how parents and children bond because they both torture each other. And you're like, but I'm not giving up because I haven't gotten back all the torture I need to deliver.
Right.
So you stay with them bonded. That's very much what the 20th century slideshow is about, this torture bonding, because you each are like, no, I still owe them another round. I'm invested in them.
Yeah. So, but that's what I'm trying to say is we're talking about these movies from...
There it is.
Thank you, trauma bonding. That from the perspective of artist creations, where we create art or craft or both, and we are creating it to be seen. Otherwise, why would you share something you didn't intend to be seen or to be consumed by others? That's odd. So that is the presumption in Jersey Girl, is that it was meant to be consumed by others, and how inappropriate, therefore, it was in how it was created and the editing or lack thereof editing process.
So while I would normally agree with you, I think the reason I took a different tact with Jersey Girl is as when I realized that this was one of their Oscar bait movies, I had a completely different read on it, in that how are they trying to show that they're smarter than we are through the production of a not very good movie that will then get all of the accolades and make us feel dumb because we didn't get how secretly good this thing was the whole time. Because that does kind of feel like what the Motion Picture Association does with a lot of their Oscar bait movies. And so
is that like that? What was that black and white movie that recently came out about the lighthouse or something?
I think it's just called The Lighthouse. Yeah.
Of it's not a great story.
It's a film that happens.
Yes. So,
but
that's all. Again, I'm not trying to invalidate anyone's experience with genuinely abusive people. No, they're real. And
it's not that any character in Jersey Girl is unbelievable. Again, these are all people we have met from Ben Affleck's self-centered character to, let's be
yes,
honest.
they did in fact call child services on, and they did find a better caregiver for that child. I did do that. A grandmother, thankfully, was available.
To Liv Tyler's, but let's be honest, and use the term of the time, manic pixie girl.
Yes.
In context, though, didn't this movie come out at roughly the same time as like Crash and all of those weird Oscar bait movies that were all about unlikable characters?
Yep.
Like, I mean, that was unfortunately like no, you don't understand how smart we are that we're changing the definition of anti-hero to just be monstrous peoples that we for some reason watch for no reason. Like, there was this weird aesthetic thing that happened in the movie industry about it doesn't absolve the movies of its sins,
it was,
but I feel like it explains.
Of monsters.
Yeah, it explains how this movie got made.
Yeah. So, like, that's all I was trying. The point I was trying to make, not like that anybody's point of view is invalid about this or anything, but just simply.
Oh yeah.
Once you get to an editing process, it's time to start thinking about who are you intending to read this, or who are you intending to be the final consumer of.
And why we have reshoots in movies.
Yes. Instead of just how it made you feel. And I say that as somebody who has written a whole bunch about my own trauma that none of y'all have ever read, because, again, I'm not ready to morph it into something that's enjoyable to consume, or somehow people don't deeply regret consuming it afterwards. That's the goal. So it's just about, like, as writers, thinking about the intended consumers of our stories.
Because that's what my book, The Chain, actually is that was about 3 years of me processing, well, many years prior to that, but in making that book come into being, that was 3 years of me putting that into a story that was accessible to other human beings, and apparently specifically middle-aged housewives who were very upset with their husbands for some reason and needed a drag persona. Did not realize that was my target audience, but apparently, this is what the market has revealed. This is who I write to, apparently. But yeah, I get. I think my biggest flaw before getting ready for this was spending way too much time thinking about structuralism and post-structuralism, and end up having a structuralist argument when we're living in a post-structuralist world. Let's get all the big college words out. Are we ready?
That's what the third hour's for.
Yes.
When we've talked to all the regular talk, and then it's all right. Now we'll show you who we really are, which is a lot more intelligent than most people are comfortable with.
So Zack and Miri Make a Porno is a deconstruction of our capitalist society and what it forces people to do and take on in order to simply make a living. And maybe the most subversive movie that Kevin Smith has ever made.
True. Glory, why don't you give the quote you told me about Zack and Miri over the weekend?
Which one? I did talk about it a bunch, but I was like, it's Chasing Amy too.
No. Dumpster fire, Glory. Dumpster fire.
I felt so seen and called out watching this film, because in half of all the scenes, there is literally a trash fire. And I was like, well, welcome to the 2020s. Who knew he was prophetic? I'm literally living this in the 2020s. And then there's the metaphorical trash fire in half of all the scenes. And yeah, I feel seen, but I also feel a little called out that I am in this now going, hey, instead of making a porno, I instead became a YouTuber. Like, it's just a disastrous result.
Okay, Spence has a good point of, like, it is that time, and before but I did just want to, like, have real quick fun of the let's just give people what we're going to go into the third hour of. Oh no, we're going full film school in the third hour.
All right, babes. So now probably is a great time, since you got a drink last break. Now's a great time to check in with that bladder and see how it is, because we are definitely going to talk some weird stuff when we come back. Buckle up, babes. We'll see y'all in approximately 10 minutes. Maybe to beep. Maybe to beep. Maybe to beep beep beep. Come out, wherever you are.
So I want to take issue with these bio breaks because every time we take one, the hubby feels that it's time to engage in serious, rational thought about the philosophy of streaming. And it's just too many conversations to have. I mean, it's just too many conversations.
Deep thought, man.
It's like deep thought, man. Yeah. Yeah.
We aim to be inspiring.
Well, here we are. Back for the third hour where we let it all hang out. By the way, before we really get started, I'd like to thank everybody who's clicked like. We really appreciate that. And we really appreciate y'all for subscribing and even ringing that bell. And thank you to our member for having a membership. I would like to point out, just in case anybody might be thinking about a membership, if we get one more member, we can upload 5 more emojis. And memberships start for as little as 99 cents.
Also, if I'm not wrong about this, isn't the split for better on YouTube than it is on Twitch?
It is
Yes.
70% to the content creator versus Twitch's 50%.
Yeah,
split.
Twitch takes half.
Yeah, YouTube takes 30% instead of 50%.
I mean, I hate to break it down to like the raw capitalism of the thing, but
Also, I just like
your dollar
that.
goes further.
I like that YouTube lets me set the lowest, the first tier membership at 99 cents versus Twitch does not allow me to set it that low.
Oh,
They
Jeff needs
require it
more
be at
Nava.
$5. Because, I think 99 cents is much more, just spending money. And people can show their love without breaking the bank. So
That is a really cute sticker.
now I gotta go look at it.
Yeah,
Here, I'll just share screen.
Oh, that's so cute. Oh, sweetie.
I wish that would actually show up.
There.
There. Thank you, Tom. That is so sweet. Thank you, honey. Thanks, Spence.
How about a little bit of Inception screaming?
Yes. But yeah, I was just looking at the memberships during the break because I was, we have new unicorn butts emojis. And I was like, oh, can I upload it? No, I have to have one more. We have to have one more membership in order to upload 5 new emojis. So just thought I would give up that. So anyway, back to our regularly scheduled.
Aww.
Maggie says I did the chores early because the goats are all hiding in the barn peeking out at the snowflakes. Aw. It's getting real burr around here.
I
Smith,
misread that.
Mr. Spence and I tidied the kitchen and settled on canned madness for dinner. Is that what you're actually calling it?
I believe it goes with the earlier presentation of here I have brought you, what was it, Chef Boyardee raviolis?
I thought canned madness is you take whatever doesn't have labels in the pantry and you open it up and try to make a meal out of it.
I mean, I get that it's pure poison, but if anyone were to bring me some Chef Boyardee ravioli, I'd be very happy.
Gloria and I were actually having a discussion because of a couple orders I've had in the last month to go shopping for. And seriously, why is there always raviolis around here, but there's no spaghetti? Do people really like canned spaghetti that much?
Like, what he's saying is, like, he keeps getting orders to go get, like, at grocery stores to go pick up cans of Chef Boyardee spaghetti meatballs. And they're always out at the grocery stores. But they've always got the ravioli. And we love the ravioli. Because the spaghetti gets really soggy and soft. Yeah. But, I mean, I guess you feed it babies. I don't know.
I think the most depressed I've ever been is an Italian friend of mine gave me their bolognese recipe, and I made it, and it took 6.5 hours to make. And when I was done, it tasted like Chef Boyardee, and I spent 6 hours for something that I could have gotten out of a can,
Yep.
and I was very heartbroken. Like, it was delicious, and I'm sure a lot better for me than whatever chemical cocktail is in that can. But flavor-wise, it was indistinguishable from Chef
We inadvertently made Chef Boyardee spaghetti and meatballs, but like slightly better in the pressure cooker.
Yeah, we do have a quick and dirty recipe for if you want at home Chef
Yeah.
Boyardee spaghetti and meatballs.
Yes,
It's
less
real easy.
chemicals, but
Is the thing
delicious.
already?
Go ahead. Like, remember we just did inadvertently do recipes down. I remember our meatballs were actually great value Italian
Yeah, we just got
meatballs.
great value Italian
They're
meatballs.
frozen.
hmm
Which are
But
a lot
first
better
you
than
put-
you think they'd be.
Yeah, they're really good, and they use, relatively good ingredients. Because I happen to accidentally know somebody who works at the factory where they make it. Anyway, and they're like, no, it's pretty good, clean stuff. It's not like cows with tumors, Anyway.
But yeah, if you really want to make your own at home in a pressure cooker, it's easier if you have a scale with any weight measure, because you put the spaghetti noodles in, you put twice their weight. Actually, since it's spaghetti sauce, you can put an equal amount of water into the weight of the spaghetti, and then you put a jar of Prego in, and the jar of Prego will supply the other half of the water you need, because pasta needs double its weight in water to rehydrate. There's the real secret to pressure cooking pasta.
Yeah.
You put a jar of Prego in there with the meatballs, pressure cook for about 5 to 8 minutes, and there it really will.
It is hauntingly the same
texture.
without being like the overcooked spaghetti noodles of the canned stuff.
Hey, sweetie, guess what we're having later this week?
But it is delicious because the Prego with the meatballs really soak up that Prego, and it is delicious and very soft meatballs. Just like, it tastes so much like it. It was like, we both took one bite and was like, oh my God, this is Chef Boyardee. But
Although for best results, I will say, put the Prego and water in along with the meatballs first, mix it all up, and then put the spaghetti noodles in, or else the spaghetti noodles do have a tendency to clump, and you'll have little dry sections where not enough water got to it. And that's the way you make sure enough water gets to all the noodles. But yeah, that's it.
It's real easy. It's really delicious. It's so easy. It's really it is very much comfort food, no matter whether you put real grated Parmesan or Kraft Parm.
And if you want to do this, the I am so tired method, it's called, you take a Prego jar, you put that in, you fill the Prego jar with water, you put that in, and you put in a pound of your favorite
ground meat.
No, spaghetti. Your noodle.
Yeah, your favorite noodle, whatever.
You don't have to measure anything. You just put a bag of macaroni or pasta of some kind in there that's dried.
See, if the one pot was truly universal, there would be a button for those. I'm just saying, we need to send a note to them. This needs to be a button on the one pot.
But yeah, that's it. And you pressure cook for the minimum amount of time.
Yeah, 5 minutes. Honestly, that's all we did. We just did 5 minutes. We didn't do the 8.
It's the
partly because we like thin spaghetti noodles rather than the regular spaghetti noodles. Personally, we just prefer the thin ones.
Or if you're going fancy, just break up a pound of lasagna noodles into half or quarter pieces that you can fit into your pressure cooker, and just tell yourself and put dollops
of
ricotta on top, and there you've got pressure cooker lasagna.
We've done that one. It's pretty good.
Guess what else we're having later this week for dinner?
Oh yeah,
but that one, I do suggest they go brown a pound of beef in there, just crumble it up, and then put the Prego and water on top of that, and everything else, and that will give you the meat sauce
Yeah, it's really
Whatever you-
good. We love
Chef Boyardee
Prego.
effect. Because yeah, it is that pressure cooking that gives Chef Boyardee that particular tomato taste.
Hmm.
It's when you pressure cook the pasta with the
So the pasta
pasta
absorbs some of the sauce, but the sauce is watered down. That's what you get. That's how you get it, is that pressure cooking of, sauce to and equal parts sauce and water. That's how you get that Chef Boyardee taste. Which again, I'm not going to complain about. It is a flavor of my childhood. I am not here to complain about Chef Boyardee. Also, the man was a wonderful human being. He
Yeah.
was trying to feed a lot of people who weren't getting regular meals. He is a wonderful person. May his memory live on forever. So, bravo to him. But also, yeah, that is the flavor of my childhood, and sometimes I'm just in the mood for it. It's
and
so
if
good.
you want the secret Italian mother trick to give it that true je ne sais quoi,
Mm-hmm.
that you're always like, but why doesn't my pasta ever taste like these ones? It's called 2 tablespoons of grape jelly.
Yes.
Concord grape jelly.
Yep.
Yeah.
Like regular grape jelly is not an acceptable substitute for Concord. You got to spend the extra to get the Concord grape jelly. It's just 1 or 2 teaspoons, heaping teaspoons of it. And it is better than using red wine. I've tried it both ways. The grape jelly works better.
Yep.
It's wild.
It's nice to know your kids have good taste, Maggie.
We've also done it with dried tortellini. We've done it with frozen tortellini. We've done it with all sorts of... The pressure cooker actually really makes pasta taste better. Because that sauce, the pasta absorbs some of that sauce, and it just makes it next level, for reals, no matter what your sauce is. Because, yes, we have done it with basil cream sauce and ravioli. I may have a weakness. And it is so good, y'all. Because cream, if you use pure heavy cream, it doesn't curdle. So, anyway, nobody asked, but there we are.
I kind of
exactly.
asked.
Yes, with the beefaroni. Haven't tried raspberry because I felt like the seeds would be a giveaway. But good to know.
All right, so back to
so Zack and Miri.
A postmodern deconstruction of American capitalism and how it prevents people from finding their true love.
And who would have guessed it would just be prescient for 10 years in the future?
Oh, tell me about it. Like, if this movie was just about whether or not they should start an OnlyFans, like, this would have been so 2020.
Mm-hmm.
In every possible way.
I mean, everything from the water and the electricity getting shut off to the fact that
Who
they're
shuts off electricity in the middle of the night, by the way?
bastards. I know there's actual some systems, like particularly in cities, to set up to do it because they do it at midnight because it's just the computer program.
Yep.
And yeah, like, excuse me, who needs to? But like both of these people, by the way, are working presumably full time.
Mm-hmm.
And are living in a real slum. And are not able to keep the electricity and the water on. If this is not a commentary on 21st century late stage capitalism.
And what is it that gets the electricity and water turned off? The cost of a pair of skates.
Yeah.
That's the difference between having water and electricity or not, is the cost of a pair of skates, to give you an idea of how little they're making.
That just Zack and Miri. The first time I watched it, it was virtually a painful experience, just because in so many ways, especially as a creative who has worked their entire life doing creative things, it felt so. Well, I guess this is where I just prostitute myself for money so I can pay the bills now.
Mm-hmm.
Like it hit home in ways that Kevin was thinking this too, because, well, we already talked about the flaws in his artiste cinema movie that really didn't work, and you could really feel that, like, well, I guess all you want is the dirty stuff, so I guess that brought us to here. We're here. Are you ready for the glass table? Are you ready? Like, you can really feel the frustration in this movie, and that works in its benefit. And as much as I said it earlier, I have feels about Seth Rogen. I have so many feels, and none of them are exactly positive or good.
Mm-hmm.
But he is so perfect for this movie. Because, one, he's the kind of guy that I feel like would have made the suggestion of, hey, why don't we just solve this with porn?
Yeah.
And his nervous laughter, which, granted, it is his trademark, but it does defray a lot of the unease that, at least when I saw it in theaters, the audience was having with the subject matter, because him giggling about things gave them permission to uncomfortably giggle too. And goes back to what we were talking about earlier with Kevin Smith doing a really good job with his casting.
And here's the surprise factoid I learned watching Clerk. You would think Jersey Girl is what broke Kevin Smith. That, he had this award-winning movie no one saw and no one liked. No, Zack and Miri is what actually broke Kevin Smith and just got him to start, and Seth Rogen combined, just got him on a wake and bake cycle of smoking. Was Zack and Miri. That was what actually did it.
And I can see that because... And it's not just because of the adult subject matter of the story, as in, like, we use the word adult to mean naughty because we feel awkward saying naughty, I guess. I don't know. I've always found it weird that we refer to any, like...
I think it's because people feel childish when they say naughty.
Well, I'm just saying, I feel like adult is not the correct term for dirt, I don't like the word dirty.
The word we're not using, because we don't want to admit all the fucked upness of society, is shameful.
Yeah.
This is a shameful thing.
I mean, when I saw this movie, I saw it in the theater, and I really was like, oh my God, does Kevin Smith have a camera on my life? That is how I ended up directing an adult film.
Including with that lack of power.
Yes. And I mean, I had a weird crew, and the actors took turns holding the lamp just right, because it was a wild time. And I had done it just a few years prior to when Zack and Miri came out. I directed an adult film for a local production company that agreed to buy it after I filmed it. And we filmed it in a hotel room over 2 nights with the, unofficial blessing of the night clerk, who did come in to watch sometimes.
And cleaning staff.
Yes. They came to watch. They cleaned up behind us. They hid it from the owner. The whole thing. So I was just like, oh my God, I am living this. It's 2 Jews in a slum. This is me. I was living in a house without a full roof at the time. It's me.
Don't forget, there's literally 2 trash fires in bins always going on in this house, and they're not being hurt by carbon monoxide, which tells you just how much that roof and those windows are not sealed.
Yep. Which you do feel is a feature rather than a bug in the storytelling. Like that is a world building element, not a thing that they didn't think about when they were putting it together.
Mm-hmm.
No, the thing they didn't think about is how are they going to clean all that soot off the ceiling?
Right.
I told Tom I consider the actual real piece of fiction in this entire movie the part where Zack hasn't slept in over 24 hours and then he's going to shoot his sex scene. I'm like, I don't know if any man who the dipstick works accurately after 24 hours of no sleep. It's a very rare person that can get it to even come to attention. So, that was one of our issues actually when filming, when I was directing, was you need to go to a car and take a nap because guess what? You keep getting soft. You know, like that was little conversations I had to have with people, with my actors. Of you can't come in from working a full shift and go straight to this. You've got to take a nap because the human body just doesn't work that way.
Although on the other hand, real quick, let's give kudos to Justin Long for stealing every scene he is in this movie.
Yes.
Especially the end credits.
His end credits scene. Like, look, y'all, Justin Long was not my favorite actor before. But Justin Long under Kevin Smith directorship, I adore him as Brandon St. Randy.
No, Randy St. James. I thought it was. It's not.
No, it's Randy St. Randy.
Oh, you're right.
Yes,
yeah,
I literally looked it up. Hi, I'm a reference library. Did you know that? So, like him and Yoga Hosers, like y'all, him in Jay and Silent Bob reboot. Mwah!
Oh, yes.
Which is how Kevin Smith rolled Zack and Miri into the View Askewniverse.
Yep.
Was using, but unnamed, since apparently Kevin Smith still does not have rights to Zack and Miri and Dogma. So because he did not retain rights to Zack and Miri or Dogma, that is how he had to do it. Was Justin Long's character, the lawyer in Jay and Silent Bob reboot, is unnamed, but that is Brandon St. Randy. And in order to fold Zack and Miri into the View Askewniverse. So that's some weird trivia that nobody cared about, but I'm just telling you now.
Isn't that most conversations about Kevin Smith movies of here's some weird trivia that you didn't really care about, but now it's all you're going to think about from now on? Like, I feel like that's most of the conversations around these movies.
Kevin Smith is really good at a shared universe. He is one of the few directors that his shared universe is believable. It all works out. There's not problems. It's not ad hoc.
This is the same universe that within it contains Dogma and Yoga Hosers.
Don't go to Canada. And Tusk.
Well, I mean, I have long maintained that Canada is a wild place. As you know from the horror stories I was told as a child in boarding school about the Trans-Canadian Highway and Alberta, where ghosts roam and murder people who have car trouble.
I really need to know if Kevin Smith has ever met a Canadian, just because I know it's an American trope to just like say things about Canada, because why wouldn't we? They're there and it's easy. But, which are like the two things that Americans need to make a joke. But I just go back to Clerks, the animated series, where we see the great chief of Canada afraid of the rain because, I don't know. Kevin, what is your deal with Canada? Like, I have questions. Who in Canada hurt you?
Canada's a wild place, especially when you just go by stories from Canadians, like I have.
One of my exes...
Murder ghosts? Come on!
Yeah, one of my exes was Quebecois, and I kept asking her, well, why are you down here then? And she was like, oh, let me tell you. And... oh, the stories that I have heard.
I'm going to be honest, my brain just really blipped there, and I am just now imagining the story that I don't have any of the skills to write about trans people, transhumans possibly even, fighting demons and vampires on this forbidden highway in Canada.
I came back from
only trans people are allowed to go on because it's so dangerous. But obviously so much money is to be made, which is why they still go along this route.
Oh.
But your convoy has to be protected by trans people who are the only ones who have the power to fight demons and vampires.
We're going to call this series Trans-Canadian Truckers. And
I mean, it's called the Trans-Canadian Highway. I'm just pointing that out. Like, that's the official name, y'all.
Yes, this is a thing that, yes, I volunteer as tribute to help work on this masterpiece of a project.
I mean, who doesn't love trash fires?
Have you seen my career? I mean, yes.
I came back from school and told Tom all of these insane ghost stories that I had been told, and I'm like, no, they swear it's true about Alberta. No, it's true. And so that's he too has now grown up on these stories about the wild absurdity, the murderous absurdity,
Also,
of the Trans-Canadian Highway.
Also, it probably doesn't help that, like, I'll be honest, I only just watched Eternals this past week. And all I could think after watching that movie is, of course, Charlie liked it. It's Sense8, the Marvel movie.
Yes.
Like, seriously, the Unimind or whatever thing. Like,
yep.
We're not even going to try to hide that this is Sense8, the Marvel movie. No, we're just gonna fold it.
We're just gonna go there. We're just gonna do it. Yeah.
So that may also be part of it, but just hearing Trans-Canadian Highway, I'm like, why is it only trans people can go on this highway in Canada?
Because they're the only ones safe, and it's also they're the masters of.
I just wish that we transes had all of the superpowers that people ascribe to us, because, yeah, that's a conversation for later during Don't Starve. But, oh man, yeah, I've got one of my favorite streamers is Canadian, and he's been covering the whole trucker thing that's going on there. And much to his chagrin, he's had to use a lot of footage from local Canadian news broadcasts. And, like, it's become a drinking game on the stream of every time the news presenter makes a hockey reference, take a shot. Because it's apparently not a cliche. It's a thing that actually happens. Like, it's not a joke at Canada's expense. It's a stereotype that they have earned, and he's outing Canada to the world.
I love as all of these morons discover exactly what is civil asset forfeiture and how can it be used against you. I mean, no, the government can seize any property they want.
Yes.
Especially if it's in the committing of a crime.
Yep. Such as blocking interstate, international traffic. But also the whole, where they keep talking about First Amendment rights. It's like the First Amendment in Canada has nothing to do with free speech. Y'all are very obviously Americans that are going to another country to cause problems, and this is not going to go well for you.
But that is kind of our shtick, though. Like, if we Americans aren't going to other countries and causing problems, I mean, what are we going to do?
It's a really bad habit that we frankly need to unlearn.
Here's a fun
I'm just
fact.
happy that we went north this time and are kind of leaving Central America alone for the moment.
Just for the first time ever.
I love how much all these people have obviously never actually looked in and read the first page of their passport, which says, any country that stamps this passport, I agree to abide by that country's laws while I reside within it.
Mm-hmm.
Whoopsie.
Yeah, and now that you have to use an American passport to travel into Canada, there's no excuse to say they didn't know. Spence says, technically not all. I saw a thread on Twitter from truckers still driving who were just livid about this. Yes. Apparently,
it's a minority.
The unvaccinated truckers make up less than 10% of all the truck drivers in Canada and America that do this sort of international travel transit system.
And I mean, not to get too into the weeds, but the organizers of the protest are extremely problematic people that be wary of casting any support their way until you look into some of their very fascist adjacent points of view.
Yes.
To go with
I think you're being kind there, but yes,
I'm trying not to completely derail us by saying the N-word.
Oh, come on. I was going to, though, to truly finish that
rule. Demands also, obviously,
I wanted to use the German quote.
Well.
I wanted to use that German saying someone pointed out on Imager.
What you got, babe?
Apparently this is roughly the translation from German. If you have a Nazi at the table talking with 10 people, you have 11 Nazis at the table. That's the German saying.
Thank you. I feel so validated.
That's how the Germans feel about them.
Good.
So, now, why can't we agree with that? Anyway. Back to the movie about porn.
Here we are, back at Zack and Miri.
But no, I think there is a wonderful sense of exhaustion that fills this movie. And it's something that is kind of remarkable given the point at which it happens in Kevin Smith's career, where a lot of directors would have kind of sat on their laurels and just realized, well, I either make a hit or I don't make a hit. They're giving me money to make this. I don't care. For him to both be just completely like, fine, here's your dirty movie, virtually a protest pick on his behalf of, fine, you want the dirty film? I'll give you a dirty film.
I feel like what you're talking about is he never went to the Gus Van Sant of,
Yes.
What was it? Good Will Hunting 2, hunting season.
Right. Like, just...
What's my line? Whatever you want to say, Matt. Just
say
something. Let
yeah,
me count your money.
A lot of directors would have really gone in that direction, but just to see him just like, fine, if this is what you want, this is what you're going to get, and I'm going to make it oddly poignant with a problematic but kind of cute-ish love story thing in the middle of it. And I'm going to make you feel something because apparently my fever dream didn't make you feel anything, so I'm going to make you have feels about Seth Rogen and you will never forgive me.
Okay, so one of the things I noticed about these 4 films as watching them is all 4 of them are romances. And what I mean by that is, like, I noticed watching Clerks II of, this really is the embodiment of the 19th century term romantic friendship. Of, like, there's that wonderful scene in the jail between Dante and Randall, where Randall has to declare his undying love for Dante, but no homo it, and that is the definition, the 19th century definition of romantic friendship, which is a homosocial rather than a homosexual relationship. But like Jay and Silent Bob, again, these, like, Jay and Silent Bob movie really cements Jay and Silent Bob's relationship as well. Again, a romantic friendship. They are ride or die for each other. And we see that played out even more in Clerks II, between Jay and Silent Bob, that they went to prison together and they still came out together. Even though Jay found God and sobriety, that all of these movies are romances.
God did boop his nose.
It is what it is. A boop is a boop.
I think that did was let Jay always get that hard on whenever he wanted to use him back in Miri. Of like, this is my special power. I can get it up at any time. Because he literally says afterwards, I've got, a chub.
At will.
Yep.
Is that weird?
That is a trick. Yes, that's a good trick. So I thought that was very interesting because I don't really think of Kevin Smith as a romantic writer. But all 4 of these films really stood out to me as romances. They are all, they do visit non-traditional romances, or at least non-traditional approaches to romance. And then, like, nobody falls in love in a porn, right? That's not a normal trope in mainstream cishet land.
And yet,
although Love Actually also touches on it, but that's not.
And yet, all 3 sets of people in Zack and Miri, that are in the adult section, do form a partnership.
Yeah, Barry and Bubbles definitely form some sort of romantic relationship that they then end up going on the road working together, if you will.
Again, why this story would work so well nowadays as an OnlyFans story. Like, I mean, it is oddly prescient.
He was too ahead of his time.
Yeah.
Just like most of his movies. Most of his
Yeah,
movies
most
are
of
a
his
decade
movies-
ahead.
I would say at least a decade, if not slightly more, ahead of mainstream. He just needs to sit on these scripts a little bit longer before he makes them, so he can be at the front of the crest rather than 10 years ahead of the crest.
On the other hand, he can write these scripts in under a week. Like in 2 to 3 days, he can usually write most of these scripts. Like he is a prodigious typist.
Mm-hmm. But like, to me, I think among what works is these relationships that are worth talking about. They are worth watching. They're worth witnessing.
I had the oddest thought watching the end of Clerks II. You know, essentially once the story gets better, that the Randall and Dante prison speech, well, dialogue, really could have been lifted and with barely any word changed put into the end, one of the, the close to ending, quote unquote, which we usually think of in writing as the epiphany scene in Jennifer's body between Needy and Jennifer.
Ooh.
on
Yes.
the bed.
Oh.
Where
I agree. Like, that would have been so much more, like, that would have gotten my attention watching Jennifer's Body. That would have felt so much more heartfelt and more retching about, you can't have a future when you're like possessed by a demon or whatever's happening with Jennifer. I'm not really clear on this. There's a non-future for this relationship, so if anything, it would make it more poignant for me.
But there's Jennifer going, who am I going to be without you? I have to have you around.
Mm-hmm.
But they don't have that conversation, and that's where, Jennifer's Body kind of fell flat.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't have that resolution.
Yeah.
That we were all looking for in this story. And again, versus Clerks II, we got that resolution. Mm-hmm. We got multiple resolutions with these characters of them all admitting their romantic feelings for each other that everyone else could see. Mm-hmm. Everyone else knew. It wasn't even really a question. They just didn't want to admit and be vulnerable and hurt. Which is kind of the problem we saw in Jersey Girl, is this, I don't want to be vulnerable.
I was just about to say, that's like the whole quest in Kevin Smith's work, is trying to figure out how to navigate, especially masculinity, because he doesn't write that many female characters. Mm-hmm. But how to navigate masculinity and have those relationships. It really does seem like he's searching for maybe not a remedy for toxic masculinity, but how to keep those things that he really likes while finding a way to be better. I don't want to say be better, but not give into the darker aspects that are generally associated with it. And that's an interesting thing to watch somebody play with. And I often feel like, even though he is not, and it doesn't really fit in here, that Kevin Smith's work really is like a visitor pass into queer cinema, and that he's asking a lot of the same questions that queer films do about what do our relationships mean, how are we supposed to live in a society that treats us the way that we do and defines us in the way that it does. But he's having that conversation with cishet characters, predominantly straight cishet characters, but not exclusively, who are navigating those same questions. And that's one of the things that's always fascinated me about him, is while he is very much a heterosexual dude bro in every aspect of who he is, he's writing the straight equivalent of queer cinema.
Mm-hmm.
One thing I've noticed watching this decade, the 2000s, and I still remember a lot of the 90s ones as well. I still watch them occasionally. That I realized is a bit odd, and is only now, again, more than a decade ahead of his time, is that all the main female characters are, how do I put this, horny and a little bit pervy. Like, Glory mostly joked about this with me with Zack and Miri, of how the Elizabeth Banks character, her nickname is wrong.
Oh yeah, they call her Stinky Linky rather than Kinky Linky is what I said she should have been called.
And we see this. And then in Clerks II, again, we see with Becky, Rosario Dawson's character, where she literally pauses their heartfelt conversation outside of the bachelor party to go, wait a minute, I got to go see this.
Like, when am I going to ever get an opportunity? I got to go check this out real quick.
But we also see this even in the 90s movies, in Mallrats with the high school girl character who's doing, a book.
Oh, yeah, she's doing the sex study. That's right.
Yeah. We see her with that, and then we see Chasing Amy, with the main female character of, again, no, this is what she's interested in. There's nothing wrong with her. This is part of who she is.
Mm-hmm.
But that, like, we wouldn't see this be considered a normal thing. Truly, women are just like men. That the different is a societal construct.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what really lends these movies to a queer theory reading. Because while I would not say that they're not characters that you could substitute out. Like, you couldn't have a woman play Randall. You know what I'm saying? Or
with his butt chin.
Yeah, the character is very specifically cis male in the way that he's written and constructed. But because all of the characters have these questions about their gender roles and their sexuality throughout. I mean, it's most prevalent in Zack and Miri and in Chasing Amy.
Mm-hmm.
But you see them just... I would love to be a fly on the wall listening to Kevin Smith and his brother have conversations, because I want to know how much of those conversations informed this work. Do you understand what I'm saying? Like, they really feel like this is somebody who loves his brother, because that really is what Chasing Amy is. He said that on numerous occasions. That was a love letter to his brother, of him trying to understand the world that his brother lived in, and doing it in the way that he does that through telling a story. But you can see that he's not only listened to this conversation that he's tangentially related to, he's internalized it. And he's starting to ask those questions about his own sexuality, about his own relationships, because it is anathema to our modern construction of masculinity to have a relationship like Jay and Silent Bob have. Like, the very fact that they call each other hetero life mates, like, this is a romantic term. Like, this is that romantic friendship term.
And that we even see they have a certain physical intimacy with each other.
Yes.
And we are told throughout that both of them are not classically hetero. Like, we have in Dogma where they say, Jay is thinking about dudes.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
When he's aroused. And Kevin's also said that, Silent Bob is bisexual.
Mm-hmm.
That, this is part of these characters. Even though they are not directly interested in each other, that is their friend. That is a romantic friendship for them.
Mm-hmm.
And it's fascinating to watch it, because I can't think of another director or screenwriter that is having that conversation outside of queer cinema. You know what I'm saying? Like, outside of movies made by queer people for queer people, that occasionally a straight person will wander in and go, what the hell just happened?
Well, I loved another quote I heard from Glory over this weekend talking about this, about, what was it? The only non-problematic depiction of Buffalo Bill, let alone repeatedly, in a series by a character.
I really feel like that Kevin Smith had Jay take back the character of Buffalo Bill as less problematic, and no mention of anybody in a pit, but just merely the trans part, or the playing with one's gender and presentation, and that this is Jay's happy place to keep him sober. That to reenact this particular little finite slice of the Buffalo Bill character keeps Jay sober and happy and not looking for escape. as Jay sort of play acts, really examining gender and sexuality in this moment, in this slice of this character.
And we see Jay do this repeatedly throughout the movies.
We do. Like, it's not just one time.
No, it's not.
Anytime Jay is like struggling with sobriety, there's Silent Bob, click, and there's the music starts. And Jay's go, oh. Like, we know immediately what's going to happen each time, and that we know that it all will be right again for Jay. He will stay sober because Bob knows how to help Jay be sober, and that is by this Buffalo Bill character, the least problematic portrayal I have ever seen in print or any other medium of Buffalo Bill. Of essentially, it's the Buffalo Bill with a happy ending, where Buffalo Bill is not like kidnapping anyone or doing anything terrible or violent. He's just wrong. Playing with and examining his own gender and sexuality, which is the healthy thing to do.
So the other way that I think that works is that Jay is the live action Bugs Bunny. And so because a lot of you can see the character of Bugs Bunny written so heavily over him, it is not jarring to see the character do that, because Bugs Bunny also played with his gender and, might I say, sexuality.
I would definitely, because he kisses a lot of dudes.
Yes, he kisses a lot of dudes.
As well as a few ladies and a few humans, so he kisses outside of his species frequently. Bugs Bunny is playing with gender and sexuality and species attraction. So yeah, it does feel natural that Jay is also open to examining all these things as well.
Which makes it a lot less threatening for audiences than when you're like, have you seen Hedwig? Because I love that movie, but not exclusively, but most heterosexual cis people that I show that movie to, you then have to have a 3-hour conversation at the end of what did I just see?
I'm not going to say you're wrong. I believe that it's about how long I talked with Glory after the first time she made me watch that movie.
Because, like, especially if you're trans, like, you watch that movie, you get to the end, and you're just like, I am Johnny Gnosis. Like, you just have this moment at the end where you realize, I've seen through the rainbow. I am Johnny. I am Hedwig. I am the walrus. Like, yes, I'm here. I found my true self. The person I needed to love all along was me. The power of friendship is within you. I get it. I understand. And
I really feel like the exorcism should be changed to the power of friendship compels you.
But, when watching more challenging, queer films, because I just pulled that one up as an example, but like you were saying with Sense8, like Sense8 I love, but not exclusively. Some cisgender people that I've talked to that have watched that have gotten into it and understood what's going on. A lot of others have required conversation to understand, well, how can you watch this?
Definitely feels a little bit like Jersey Girl in that it's expected that the audience has already some built-in context.
Yep. And that to me is the power of Kevin Smith, is he's bringing a lot of this conversation that we see in the more, let's just say, well, I keep saying in queer cinema, and I mean it, like in those dialogues, but in filtering a lot of this through like the Bugs Bunny archetype into Jay, which really gets cemented if you've seen the animated series. I mean, he is Bugs Bunny.
Yes, he does pull a lot of Bugs Bunny in the
animated. If you don't understand, watch the animated series. I cannot recommend the animated series enough. It is just too funny. And I quote it way too much, and you'll understand why I have some of the random quotes that I say all the time on everything, because I have a problem. But in being able to clothe these things, it's almost an interpretation of these side conversations that have been having in culture, but with the outside world, which is where it's really interesting to me that when I talk to friends of mine who are into Kevin Smith, a lot of the conversations that we are currently having about sex and gender, and they're, I don't know what the word is. I want to say prepped for those discussions, but they are inoculated. They're ready for them because they have seen something that was accessible to them that got them thinking in this way ahead of time, and that is a gift. Is it safe? Yes.
At the end of the day, Kevin Smith always has been a man-child.
Yes.
And so he is able to talk to the man-child mindset and bring in what normally are very hard conversations that there's a lot of reticence and rejection of, and just work it in as no, this is a normal thing. This is not the part we argue about.
So I haven't quoted a dead European philosopher yet, so it's time. This is
you got Ghost. What you got?
This is really that moment where you see what Nietzsche was discussing in Thus Spake Zarathustra about the three metamorphoses of the soul. Like you can see in his early films, there he is. He's the camel. He's gathering up everything. You can see all of his influences on the screen, taking them in, really starting to process them and understand them. You see him go out into the wilderness as the child in some of these earlier films in the 2000s where he faces the dragon, and that dragon was fearsome, and it was called Jersey Girl, and it almost took him down. But in the end, the third metamorphosis of the soul, one becomes a wheel rolling from their own center. They realize, well, this is who I am, this is what I am, but I am not going to limit myself to my upbringing. I can see beyond me and have access to this world beyond me, yet not lose my own identity. I don't have to agree with you. Because everybody forgets that Nietzsche was a post-constructionalist, which means he didn't believe anyone had truth, and anybody who told you what to do was lying to you to get power. And you see this so well put out where, yes, he's a man-child. He's always been a man-child. But you see how a man-child can actually mature and take on other thoughts and other people's perspectives and share them in a way that is enlightening to others, yet not losing who he is in his core identity. And
he will always be a comic book fanboy.
Yes.
That will never change.
And it is a almost necessary model for adulthood nowadays, because we don't need to give up the things that we loved in our childhood to be a part of the corporate machine that's telling us what to do. We've realized the machine doesn't care about us. And we see this like in his oeuvre, right? The machine doesn't care about us. The business that bought and paid for our stuff doesn't care. They just want us to keep making money and product for them. So we have to find a way to be honest and true to ourselves and find that way to do that with as much sincerity as we can. This is what you see in Dogma, where he still believes in things, but he can't have that strong, blind, well, everybody else must be burning in hell because I believe something different from them. And you see that struggle in there. You see it with everything that's going on in Clerks II, and that's just so much, because it's like I feel like that's his mind exploded onto screen in so many ways. Yeah, exactly like Finn in Adventure Time. And it's as is fitting in discussing Kevin Smith, you have to kind of go back to the superhero trope. I don't know that he's the superhero that we need, but he may in fact be the one we deserve right now. Like, we brought this on ourselves.
I agree.
How do we get, because we need that man-child to grow up, but not to become the destructive, angry, bitter old man, which is the path that has been set out for them. And that's what we're seeing in Kevin Smith, is this attempt, and it's through all of his characters. That's the person they don't want to be. That's Randall's big breakthrough in Clerks II, is he realizes he's going to be that bitter old man yelling at the kids in his lawn, and he doesn't want to be that man. He doesn't want to be that person. Will he end up being that person anyway? We'll see when we get Clerks 3 in a couple of years when we go back and
no, it's already in the can, and they are going to release it this year, they're saying.
There you go.
It's already been filmed, They've discussed and said what happens is Randall has a heart attack and decides he wants to make a film about his and Dante's life at the Quick Stop.
Oh, if that's not autobiographical.
Could it get more meta?
I would say if you watch the documentary Clerk, and you're a Kevin Smith fan, you can piece together how just about every movie Kevin Smith has ever written is semi-autobiographical.
Mm-hmm.
It is always about him. He is in there more than just Silent Bob. I mean, Dante Hicks is his real stand-in for who he is.
Yep.
Hence, why does Dante going to Florida, to go work the corporate life? Because that's the argument in his head.
Mm-hmm.
He had 5 years previous about should he and Jennifer move out to California,
mm-hmm.
or should they stay in Jersey where they have a support network and people like them for who they are.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that is what Clerks II is about. Every movie is semi-autobiographical.
It's what Jersey Girl's about, because it's like, well, if I went out there and something happened to Jennifer, I'd fall apart and I wouldn't have any support system.
And I would become angry Ben Affleck letting a baby cry. I'm sorry, I had to go back there. I'm sorry.
I would become a very shitty person.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to be that person. And that's what all of these have been about. And then, wait till you see the next decade as he deals with the horror movies. I love one quote of Justin Long talking about after they made the movie Tusk and his mother saw the movie.
Justin Long's mother.
Justin Long's mother. And his mother said to him right after the movie you're not allowed to hang out with that Kevin Smith anymore. Like he was a kid. And he then had to tell Kevin Smith this, like, my mom says I'm not allowed to hang out with you anymore. You're a very bad influence.
Oh, Tusk. Tusk is a thing that happened. I'm assuming this is going to be part 3.
Tusk, he wrote in literally 2.5 days. Justin Long, quote, said in the documentary, we talked about all this when we were blazed out of our minds. And I figured that's it. Nothing's ever going to come of this. Kevin wasn't writing anything down at the time. It was just a fun chat. 2 days later, I get a script of, hey, so when do you want to shoot this? And I'm like, he has everything we talked about. How did he remember that? Kevin Smith is definitely one of those deceptively intelligent people.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Where he doesn't show it. He knows how to hide it. But he is incredibly intelligent.
Which, I mean, for anybody who saw, what was it called? A Night with Kevin Smith?
An Evening with Kevin Smith.
An Evening with Kevin Smith.
Yes, I'm a fan of A Threevening with Kevin Smith personally. But yes.
An Evening Harder, A Threevening.
The entire college tour system.
Jay and Silent Bob Go Down Under.
Yes.
There's a new one, Magnum Dorpus. That I just saw. I'm like, well, I'll be getting that soon.
Yes, I very much actually get more out of Kevin Smith's rather candid stage storytelling than his films. That's where you really see him, particularly because he's edited his own stage stuff. Then I think it's in the second one, An Evening Even Harder or something like that. Where you see him tell the same story multiple times as it evolves. That he's essentially workshopping this story that he keeps getting asked at during this college tour. At various stages, various colleges, and he gets the same question asked again and again. And so you actually see this evolution over this video as he figures out how to tell it, where I think the first couple of times he tells it, people are just like, uh-huh. But by the third or fourth time, he starts getting laughs. And then he starts fixing the story. I mean, it's a real story, and he doesn't change the facts of it. But he starts getting laughs and getting more and more laughs until they're by the end of the tour, he's roaring laughter. And then you really get to understand storytelling. And I think I've gotten so much out of that. You've all seen that, where I've workshopped my stories on all of y'all live streams and in Discord voice chat, where I keep working on it, keep working on this pitch until I get it just so and then move on to the next story.
And like one thing I had never thought of, but like just truly shows the how charismatic and good a storyteller is Kevin Smith. But so Kevin Smith, the first, couple years is literally joined at the hip to Scott Mosier.
Yes.
They're doing everything together. All we really hear about though is Kevin Smith. But if you look at the pictures that was taken at the time, because, they were, well liked by the intelligentsia. Scott Mosier is, how do I put this, dramatically better looking than Kevin Smith. Like he is, especially at that time, at Ben Affleck's level of attractiveness.
You're not wrong.
But he doesn't have the personality and presence on the stage that Kevin has. And Scott says that too, of like Kevin had presence from the get-go when we went on a stage. And so everyone's eyes are just stuck to him. And that's part of why you really hear about Kevin Smith so much is he is such a good storyteller. He is so charismatic. He knows how to communicate.
Well, that's one of the reasons why I brought up the Evening with Kevin Smith is I don't think it's a stretch to say that like Kevin Smith fills that role that in previous centuries was held by people like Charles Dickens, who was able to talk, tell a relatable story, be on stage. Like we forget now because all we have is the books. Dickens was a stage show that traveled from city to city where he just entertained people and they also bought books.
Ditto for Samuel Clemens.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I mean, they made money by stage performance more than book sales.
And that, especially for us writers, is something to remember is that public persona, like we all think we know Kevin Smith because he seems so genuine and authentic. But as somebody who's been in the business for a while, like the core of that, like the seed of that is Kevin Smith. But as Gloria was talking about, you can see the workshopping. You can see how he has honed that public persona. And it's really good for us writers to pay attention to that because this is how you find a way to be authentically you, but you're not giving away too much. You're not overly personal. You're not selling yourself. You're not becoming that dancing monkey in the box that's there.
You're not trying to be an influencer.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Because developing a public persona is such an important thing for us to do, especially nowadays. If you want to get people to read your books, people have to know who you are. And yeah, people who watch me on stream, you have a pretty good idea who I am. My public persona is very close to who I really am. But there are things that I don't share that much. There are things that I've realized, like I'm an extremely religious person. That doesn't go well with the persona for the books that I sell, So I don't talk about that all that much in anything dealing with my books. And I don't hide it, though. And that's I think, the interesting thing about watching someone like Kevin Smith, where it is so documented. Like, we can see it. This is also why I highly recommend watching many of the documentaries about Taylor Swift that she did. Not that you're going to learn the secrets of who Taylor really is, but no one is a better self-promoter than Taylor Swift. Like, she knows how to market herself, package herself, and create a public persona that people will jive with. Like, this.
How long is that music video?
Right? It's what, like 13
Just
minutes?
give the girl her
scarf.
Her scarf back.
FedEx will pay for it. Just mail it to her.
But because that's really the trick nowadays, is learning how to do that and be able to sleep at night. This is where we see a lot of the burnout in the industry, is where people are becoming somebody that they know they can profit from, but is too different from themselves, and they have to perform and work too hard to be that person. And that is exhausting, to not be yourself.
Yeah.
And, especially here on, Creative Recharge, that's what this is about, right? Like going to this stuff and finding what you can take back from it. I love that Kevin has foibles. I love that he's willing to learn from them. When he's criticized, generally, he will listen to that criticism and address it, either in a future work or right on the spot when somebody brings up something to him. In those Evening with Kevin Smith things, there are people that come up to him and are just like, oh, don't you realize what a horrible misogynistic blah, 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 blah you are? And he doesn't just Ben Shapiro all over them and go, no, you don't understand how secretly brilliant I am and how dumb you are. Like, he meets people where they are. He meets his audience where they are and is willing to grow. And that, I really feel weird saying this about Kevin freaking Smith, but like, that is the role model that creatives need right now, because so many people just dig in and entrench themselves into whatever that foible is. And like you don't have to know it out.
And that kind of brings up to me one of the few things left we haven't really talked about, which was in Clerks II, it hasn't aged that well, in part because, like, I have to tell myself, he was going for a NC-17 rating, and he just couldn't get it because he wasn't willing to go where the MPAA was thinking of what qualified as an NC-17 movie at that point. But his discussion of racial epithets has aged incredibly poorly, in part because he does stand-up philosophy instead of moral philosophy, and he doesn't provide any answers for the why. His characters literally ask the why question,
but nobody answers it on screen about the implied violence behind these words. And that is why they are verboten. It is not, I mean, yes, technically a word is just a word. But when a word has history and the history is very violent, it's more than just a word then. It comes with this violence behind it, this implied violence of who used to use this word.
Like, and burning crosses. Yeah, like burning crosses in itself is not scary. It's just, well, that's a fun shape to have fire in. It's scary because of the implied violence of the people who previously have done this piece have been,
and then the violence they did after they burned the cross.
Yep.
Yeah. That's why it's scary and bad. It's not the actual crosses burning. Yeah. Okay, that's an interesting shape to watch. But the people who did it then perpetrated a lot of violence and death. And there are people who do burn crosses are implying that they will then follow through with the rest of the threat. But we don't get that discussion, that finish up of discussion in Clerks II. So instead, you just get a lot of, uncomfortable words and jokes that don't really land and are rather offensive and did not age well. Because it doesn't ever answer the question it keeps raising. The other questions he, answers, and those are all fine. No problem. But that part didn't.
And to circle back to the very beginning, this is why Dwight Ewell needs to be in all of these movies, because he was able to bring that voice in Chasing Amy. Like, the reason I'm not wanting to discount Rosario Dawson because she is, she was on set, but the vast majority of the cast, I cannot speak to the crew, but I do not know, but she is one of the only non-white characters I can think of in that movie off the top of my head.
Yeah, there really aren't.
I mean, there are tertiaries such as Wanda Sykes and Earthquake.
Yeah.
But they only get one scene. There's not multi-scene characters of color.
And they just wrote their own lines. Like, they were not actually part of the writing of the whole script.
And without those actors, without that other voice being there, like, this is when we're always saying, make sure you have your sensitivity readers lined up. Like, this is why, because I can say, as a white dude, I remember those conversations going on almost verbatim the way they are captured. Like, that is a time capsule, like
Yeah.
a lot of the strangeness is in a lot of Kevin Smith films. That is a time capsule of the discourse that was happening at the time.
Mm-hmm.
But because there was no one jeopardized by those words, no one threatened by those words in the conversation about those words, an entire perspective was missing and thus couldn't be brought in.
Yeah, all we
And
hear is those are, should go back again, circle around. Those are naughty words. We don't use those naughty words. But we don't actually answer, but what made them naughty?
Yeah, why don't we use naughty words or these particular naughty words? Also, I will say for me as well, on top of the, all these racial epithets, there was also the shaming of a character who received public sexual assault, as if it was their fault that they were publicly sexually assaulted. And this is now brought up 15 years later, and they are still shamed, no matter how much of a jerk that character is. And I will not say they are not a jerk. They are a jerk. But still, let us not blame the victim. That is toxic masculinity right there. Of how dare you? You're supposed to be a strong man as a child, and you've been sexually assaulted, and we all watched it. I'm sorry, wait, what? I thought Kevin Smith was supposed to be the voice of feminism here. What happened?
Can I just say, all of these straight men who are supposed to be the voice of feminism have been I've been let down so many times.
You and me both, babe.
Joss, I'm looking at you. Right in the eyes.
When I heard about the foot fetish, that was my first clue.
When I heard about
of the objectifying of somebody's body part and sexualizing it, like
just hearing the whole Firefly Jewel State thing, everything about that was like, wow, who knew so few sentences could convey so much creepiness? What the hell? And why?
But yeah, that second act in Clerks II definitely does not age well. And I'm really hoping that in Clerks 3 he addresses this. We shall see. Supposedly it's coming out this year. Lionsgate has said it has a 2022 release date. They haven't specifically said the date, just the release year. Yeah, he can fall into the dark hole.
But when he get his wife to help write a few scripts, like, can we get her back in Hollywood punching up scripts?
That'd be wonderful.
And do we know if any of this has been tainted his brother? Because Jed actually did a lot of the writing that we love.
But yeah, that is, I think, using sensitivity readers, using a variety of sensitivity readers, listening to others who say, hey, do you have a sensitivity reader for this? Because you should. And remembering that just because maybe you could qualify as a sensitivity reader on a certain subject doesn't mean that you don't need a sensitivity reader on that exact subject as well.
Also, I just want to kill Barry, nail the coffin shut, put a giant cement slab on top of it, and then a building to hold it completely down. If you've talked to one person of any particular group about any issue, you have talked to one person of that group about that issue. And if you want to see these fights happen in real time, go on to gay Twitter and look at how queer people talk to each other about what they're fine with and what they're not. No group is a monolith. No group is a monolith. And while in none of the things that we're talking about, I don't think we've had that, but I asked that one guy and he said it was okay.
I loved I still haven't finished watching, but that what's her name? Meme yourself to a New York Times bestseller.
Oh yes.
In Mulan.
Yeah.
and the whole, you know, she just released another, you know, video that's an hour and 15 minutes long about Raya and the Last Dragon. And this was supposed to be released like, you know, 9 months ago, but it just kept getting bigger and bigger. And we realized we needed more people across all of Southeast Asia to actually chime in and talk about this. And it was hard for us to collect enough people of different backgrounds. Here is, you know, how this discussion is still weighted by these areas of Southeast Asia, because we couldn't find anyone to have regular conversations with from these areas. Of like, they recognize the monolith is definitely an enticing fantasy for discussion and writing. And it's definitely one that needs to come down, you know, just as hard as, you know, other things have come down with Me Too.
Because, like, you know, as the token NB that is the one NB that people know, you know, I get a lot of those questions of, is this okay? And I find myself trying in conversation to play devil's advocate, because I'm like, here's what I would say. I can almost hear Sage's answer to this question, which would probably be something like this. My other NB friend, here's how I think they, you know, and I try to give at least my projected perspectives from other people, because I know that, like, Sage and I do not agree on everything about that, you know, and portrayals and whatnot. And it's, it can be exhausting.
Yes.
And the other thing, just on sensitivity readers, it is not on the part of an oppressed minority to be your teacher. Don't put that on them. Whatever it is. Like, I have some frustrations with a particular group that I want to include in the story, and I cannot get any feedback at all from the, like, literal official body that governs them. And I just had to realize I need to walk away, because if I can't find anyone, and I don't want to be insulting. And it hurts, and it's painful to do that sometimes, but it's not their job to educate me about their culture. That's not their job.
There are groups that is their job that you can go find, but
oh yeah, there are. But, you know, this is a particular native group in Maryland that I wanted to include in the story, because they would have been there during a part of the history of the setting, but I can't find resources on their particular culture and traditions and stuff, and I don't want to pan-American in nativize them and accidentally put in, you know, because I know that their tribe ended up becoming part of the Haudenosaunee, like when they were driven out, but I don't know how similar their culture was to the Haudenosaunee before this, before they were adopted as one of the younger brothers in the group. I don't want to just assume, oh, they ended up becoming a part of the Haudenosaunee, therefore I will just pretend that that was their culture, when within the Haudenosaunee there are 7 main nations, and that's not even counting the smaller ones that came in after colonialism. So
yeah, like Gloria and I were talking a week or two ago about Alice Hoffman and Practical Magic, and how we've noticed that the magical beliefs and views in Judaism do in part change a great deal with which group is it? Is it Ashkenazim? Is it Sephardim? Is it Mizrahi?
There's a bunch more. We're not naming them all.
There's a bunch more. Like, I don't remember what the Ethiopian group's called offhand.
Isn't that the Eritreans?
Eritreans, yeah, right. Thank you.
Yeah, like there are so many that we're like, hold up, which ones? Because there's also the Chinese that are deep into the heart of China, and I can't remember their name off the top. Like, there are so many that we are like forgetting, like the majority of the Jewish global population even 1,000 years ago, like the majority. Like we're actually talking about minorities of them.
And that each of them really does have their own magical views of what is magical, how does magic work.
Mm-hmm.
Kabbalistic magic is actually very particular to a subgroup of Mizrahi and Sephardim. It's an odd combination. It's not all of them. Like, it really depends on that group and even the subgroup.
Yeah.
What their views are of how their magic systems work.
Mm-hmm.
And you can
it's so different that, like, you could tell me your idea of Jewish magic, and I could tell you probably approximately what part of the world Jews had that idea, because
to within a couple 100 miles.
Yeah. Like, it's so different because, like, Chinese Jewish magic has a very different concept of where it bubbles up from and then how it's replenished, versus Mizrahi, which is Persian, and versus Sephardim, which is more of Spain and Portugal, but not exclusively. And so on. And like Eritrean is a fascinating concept of where the Jewish magic comes from. And like that's been actually documented among Eritreans for literally thousands of years. And they were so good at hiding that it's only recently come up because poverty. People started selling it off because they actually wrote their stuff down. So like, it's so like, tell me your concept of Jewish magic and I'll tell you which group you're talking about or where you
Eritreans have to literally convert to Eritrean Jews have to convert to Judaism to get into Israel, to give you an idea of how different it is and how different it is viewed.
And that's also racism, though. Why they have to like it's not that they're not Jewish or that they're like, oh, you've been so far off from Judaism. No, they're not. It's just racism, by the way. That's racism.
Yeah.
Because their ideas, Eritrean is actually more true to when the first temple still existed than Judaism is now. So they should not be needing to convert to Judaism. That's some racism stuff. But anyway, I have all sorts of salty opinions. So
but that is why you do have to find people in that specific group sometimes to talk with. Or like Ori was telling me about, you remember, from BuzzFeed, they now go by Kitchen and Jorn, but, was it Kristen and Jen?
Yeah.
Ori was telling me about, a video where Kristen found out that it was not, unlike so many families, folklore of, family folklore, that she really was part of a Native American tribe on her grandfather's side,
her mother's father's side. And
she got in contact with them, and they're like, no, stay around. Let's chat more because it is still part of your heritage.
That's always been the lore in my family, and like we have the family Bibles and stuff that have like reference to her. Mm-hmm. I can find no evidence that this person existed. And I'm wondering if latter generations invented her.
Well, but even genetic tests don't really tell you everything, because I think it was that same original BuzzFeed one, I want to say, or maybe it was a similar one, because BuzzFeed did it across the world with all their BuzzFeeds. But I just remember there was a subcontinental Indian family that had said, one of their grandparents or great-grandparents was French. Well, in her study, it didn't show up. But in her mother's, it shows up. And what part of France that family member's from.
You're very off. Okay. So there was lore about having a great uncle who was blue-eyed and pale. But when the BuzzFeed reporter, producer, whatever, did the DNA, nothing came up. She's just straight subcontinental Indian. So, and they were like, that's so weird. Her mother's like, I know I'm right. So they contacted I think it was 23andMe, and 23andMe was like, let's test your mom. Well, when they tested her mom, it did come up 4% Scottish. And so that is the issue of, like, in theory, she should have, therefore, our BuzzFeed reporter or producer should have come up as 2% Scottish, but she didn't, because you don't get a perfect, having of each parent's genetics. It is a dice roll like everything else. And so, what? Yeah.
Can I just say that's one of the parts when they're doing the health class, teaching you how babies are made. They really need to spend more time with, because the chromosomes kind of do like a weird dance and break off and twist and meet up with other parts, and like you're not half this and half that from your ancestors. That's not how any of that works. It is so much more magical and strange.
I've now known 6 people who have done. Well, I've known 6 people with kids who have done these DNA tests, and each kid is a dice roll which one they have more percentage in common with a parent. It's never 50%. It could be up to like 57% one parent or the other, which means way less than 50% from the other parent.
Genetics are a very strange thing.
Mm-hmm. So, I mean, that's also some of it too, is with people, you never know what you're going to get. And like, there's plenty of groups, not just native groups, that are very much against testing because of blood quantum. There are plenty of groups all over the planet who are very suspicious, and understandably so.
Abolish blood quantum.
Yes, absolutely. It's just absolutely.
Like, if you think the American genocide against the native populations has stopped, just look into blood quantum and see how it is still systemically going on to this day. I have a friend who has been kicked off of her family land because her mother was not enough of the tribe to count, and so she no longer has the rights. Her mother could not will her own house to her daughter because of it, and it's
Mm-hmm.
I just always remember it as South Carolina. What qualifies you as being African American in South Carolina? 1/32.
We were very surprised that Tom and I did in fact come up as siblings. We were like, nuts. We're very much like, finally proof that we're really not related.
And siblings in general, but we aren't that far off from the average of siblings, which is you're a third related.
Yeah, because it said, like, I think when Tom's came back, it said that he was either a sibling or a first cousin. Like, we're not that related. Only somewhat. So, again, it's fun, it's interesting, but there are many reasons that there's not adequate pools to figure out the genetics accurately. And it will probably be that way for quite a long time. And you know what? Your family culture is yours, and it's valid, and it doesn't matter what anyone else says. You know who you are and how you were raised and where you are from and who loves you and who looks out for you and who doesn't. And if they don't look out for you, then you really don't owe them anything.
Amen.
And you know what? That just frees you to have the option to go pick better people to be related to.
Actually, that point does actually give you a concise answer to why is Kevin Smith overall belong in queer cinema.
Because of chosen family?
Mm-hmm, almost every single story.
It is about chosen family, about you pick the people you are closest to, you make that conscious decision, and you then keep reinvesting in those relationships like you would with family, but with your chosen family.
And I feel like I say it every time I'm on one of your streams, but that's the original meaning of blood is thicker than water. The blood of the covenant is thicker than the waters of the womb. Like, the people that will ride or die with you, those are the people that you keep with you.
Mm-hmm. Right. Exactly. Well, I hope that we have inspired folks to maybe examine what they've written a little differently. Maybe, also validate what you've already written. We hope that we have enriched your own view and possibly your confidence in evaluating analyzing and synthesizing your writing craft into the product you wish to put out in the world.
And the one thing that I would just like to leave people with is just remember, you're not perfect. None of us are perfect. Whatever we consider is good representation today may not be considered that in 5-10 years from now. Like these are debates that will constantly be going on, even within the communities that are directly affected by them.
But it helps a lot if you get that community's input.
Yes. Oh, yeah. I'm just
Hence,
saying.
Chasing Amy has not entirely aged, that well. It is still 25 years old, but it's still a good movie, and it's still one considered, useful watching for the community.
Yeah, I was talking mainly towards that paralysis of, but what if I'm wrong? Like, if you've put in your due diligence, if you've put the work in, don't expect perfection from any of your work.
Yeah,
Perfection isn't ideal. It's not something we actually make.
But also, I think I still maintain that insurance against, being horribly wrong is write with compassion.
Yep.
Edit with compassion. Which doesn't mean that you lie or you obscure truth. It just means you ask, have I shown each kind of character, each character in the way that is compassionate, is honest and yet loving. It is possible to be loving and honest at the same time.
And also,
it is an art, though.
Does the people represented, especially the main characters, are they interested? Do they feel it rings true? I mean, the only reason the movie Carrie was made is because Stephen King's wife was like, no, this is actually a good story that rings true. Mm-hmm. And several other women around Stephen King are like, nope, that's accurate. This is one of the few stories about women and being crazy I like, because I feel this. I've seen this. I know these people. Even though it's not exactly a happy story or anything.
No, nothing was
it definitely has problems. But the people it was discussing still felt seen in it.
Yes.
They did not feel marginalized or deceived, or that this was malicious in any way.
Or overly simplified.
Or overly simplified.
Oh, so sick of people overly simplifying Jewish women. Yeah, whatever. But yes. Next week.
You guys are on notice.
Dang it, I have to start making videos again.
Oh, dear. Next week on Creative Recharge, we are going to talk about family and kids short films. And we may or may not have guest Spence with us. I don't know. But we are specifically going to discuss 3 short films. One is The Maiden and the Princess. And the next one is Summon a Fiend. And the third one is The Star of Eros.
And then I'm going to shoehorn in a 4th one.
Oh, dear. So we hope you all will join us on next Monday's show on February 28th. And do either of you have any parting thoughts you wanted to be sure to cover? Do you feel that your chest has been unburdened with all the things you have to say about Kevin Smith of the 2000s?
Authenticity matters. Write the stories that you care about.
Write the stories that speak to you.
I find it fun, the movies we did not talk about that he did as script for hires during this time period, because they're not Kevin Smith movies. They're just movies he was hired to script. That says something. It's not that we're ignoring them. It's just they're not Kevin Smith movies. He didn't care about them. You can see the lack of emotional investment in them. And they're just not worth talking about. Right from your heart.
Yes, I would agree. Right from your heart.
I still find Kevin Smith movies especially these 2000 ones, inspiring because they show a mature writer who's just trying to get a story out there. Like, is no longer, I must be seen or I need to prove I'm an artist or anything, just trying to get a story out. And so I'm definitely reminded of what, watching his movies and hearing his stories of just what are all the little tricks that you use as a storyteller to get a story out. We all have little bits of like, I don't know how to make this work or that work.
Sure.
And Kevin Smith uses every trick in the writer's handbook to get around this, because he's not a perfect writer either.
Mm-hmm.
And I've read his book on writing, and it's a trip.
But
it's
like
much more autobiography than it is writing tips, but
and like, yeah, one last thing I didn't discuss, but about, just being a writer and just getting the story out. Of like, to me, the case in point was Kevin Smith is a comedy writer of talkers. He doesn't really know how to do action. And so in Jay and Silent Bob, he literally has a fight between Silent Bob and Mark Hamill's character reenacting a Star Wars fight, but he doesn't know how to get from one section of this fight to the other in his script. So what does he do? Because he knows this is not his area at all, he cuts away to another scene, has a moment, and then comes back like that was the segue. Because, it said, like, he uses every trick in the book to get his story out, even when these are not his skills in writing. And that's what
there's nothing wrong with that. Use all the tricks. Or use the tricks of your trade. Absolutely. That's what you're supposed to do. You don't have to be like a genius at writing. You just need to write and then be open to practicing your craft. Maybe we'll do it a little sooner than next year. I don't know. I can't promise anything. Who am I kidding?
Probably whenever, the next one comes out. So we'll probably do like a month or two after that, depending.
After Clerks 3 comes out?
Yeah.
Where I then get to gush about Shecky the Dachshund a lot. Since Shecky is a major part of Kevin Smith's social media presence in the 20-teens and 2020s.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you're not wrong.
Y'all know I have a weakness for dachshunds. So.
There's a music video.
Red Spins. What?
Okay, whoever can make about Shecky. I need excited about dachshund gif of glory. Whoever can make those, I need that. I need that.
Oh, my Mr. Burns. Hello, little dachshund. Hello, long, strong, little red smooth. Okay, anyway. Anyhow, thank you all so much for coming. Thank you, Charlie. You are amazing every time. When I need a scholar, you come. Thank you.
I know too much about two little things.
See, that takes the stress off me. I don't have to remember this stuff. I don't have to remember how to quote Nietzsche right. I'm good. I just get Charlie. I'm good.
If you need quotes from dead European philosophers, I'm your person.
One of these days, I'm going to make little cards and just be like, let's see which philosopher. Is it?
Because you people probably have figured out I've got a certain grab bag that I pick from that I actually like.
Yes, as well as I used to have these conversations with Tom regularly when, The Good Place was playing. And all of these philosophers would come up and I would just be like, Kant! You're bringing up Kant now?
How they did that entire series without discussing Schopenhauer, I do not understand. Because I swear, the ghost of Schopenhauer possessed them and made them write that series.
Mm-hmm. I agree. I would absolutely agree with you. So with that, we're going to wave you off. Thank you all so much for coming. And yes, we will be meeting in the Unicorn Council Discord server in the voice chat very soon. But be warned, I've got to restart my computer. She given me problems, so I will be slightly delayed and may also be doing a potty break. But we will meet you all in the clubhouse to hang out for those who wish to hang out. And for those others, we will be playing Don't Starve Together. So see you all till next time. Bye-bye, everybody.
Gardenate.
Mwah.